Hello everyone, you know what time it is. Welcome back to the Creator Series. We're here this afternoon for round number 2 of the season. Of course, starting off with the second season of the F2 series, and just like real life, we'll be making our way through the falling cherry blossom to the legendary Suzuka circuit. Mr. Dale's mission to return to the F1 scene got off to the perfect start last week, taking victory in the curtain-raising sprint race, but he does not lead the championship courtesy of a dominant feature race win from F1 Alex. The likes of F1 Scott and B-Roy look to build on their positive starts, while some other drivers, Patterson and Hoodie Pete, will be able to kickstart their F2 campaigns after disappointing opening round. In the virtual commentary box for this afternoon's action is myself, Tom, and I'm delighted to say that alongside me we are joined by last season's F2 runner-up and returning F1 driver is Hayden Gullis, everybody.
Hello, hello. Thank you very much for having me in the combox. Absolute delight to be alongside you, Tom, today. And yeah, sadly, F2 runner-up. Rob is unavailable, so you had to get me in instead.
Well, I think it's not a bad little downgrade on Rob, it has to be said. Obviously, you were part of F2 last season, so you can give us some insight on what goes through the minds of some of our drivers.
I can try. I mean, I have done a lot of these sprint races in the past, especially from being further back in the field. And it's one of those where it's very difficult. You don't want to get too ahead of yourself. You don't want to be too aggressive because you can end up breaking your front wing, break your car and lose a lot of time. But at the same time, you don't want to be too cautious because that can allow a title rival who is aggressive to be stealing your points away from you.
Absolutely, and this is of course the first race where we have the proper reverse grid championship standing, so there'll be no more Mr. Dale starting from pole position for the sprint. He is being thrown right to the back of the grid, and we're going to finally see the likes of Dale, the likes of F1 Alex, how quickly can they make their way through the pack, because that is what yourself, Rob, and even Matty D13 last season were experts at.
Yeah, I mean, all three of us currently the highest in F2 for sprint race wins. All of us on 2 at the moment. But yeah, it's still difficult to get that sprint race, especially from the back, because anything can happen. And sometimes you do get held up. And I think today, the Japanese Grand Prix, that Sector 1 is so winding and twisty, and it's so narrow at the same time that we're not going to see a lot of overtakes from our championship contenders as early on. And I think this is really going to fall into the hands of somebody who wasn't racing last week, has fallen down from Formula 1. I've stolen his seat, but he's starting on pole position for today's F2 sprint race. So it's going to really play into his hands to put himself into the top. And it's, of course, Dirk Chocolate.
Well, let's have a little chat about Dirk. Obviously, he wasn't present last week, so we don't have a very big sample size. What are you expecting from the driver that you stole that Red Bull seat?
To be fair to him, I am expecting good things. I think when Dirk does put in a little bit of effort and he's got that motivation, he's actually on, I'd say, the same level as myself. And I'd say I'm not one of the top guys in F1, but I can get in the mix in the midfield for sure. And I think Dirk certainly can do. We've seen it in qualifying. But I think Dirk, like Dale, I think is able to lose his head quite quickly and be demotivated during the race if one single thing goes wrong. So he's got to try and keep himself in that positive mindset and focus on moving forward. But I think being an F2 with a much larger class of drivers, I think is definitely going to suit him a bit more, and he's going to enjoy playing the F1 game, driving these F2 cars, and hopefully for him fighting at the front of the field.
Yeah, hopefully we do see the best of Dirk Chocolate. We'll talk about some of the other leading contenders. We mentioned F1 Scott in the intro, picked up 2 second places, was voted driver of the day. We're expecting to see him do fairly decent things as well. B-Roy, Sproet had a decent outing, as did G-Watts. There are a lot of drivers that are going to be in and around those podium places. However, because they're starting towards the back in the sprint race, we could see a real concertina of cars in the middle quite early on.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're going to see similar to what we saw last season, where you did have those faster guys catching up to the slower guys, and then they really start to get in the mix together. So if you are, you've got that lucky break, I think someone like Dirk Chocolate, someone like JD Devil Noob, who are starting further up the field, Zach RC and Hoodie Pete, they need to capitalize on this. They need to capitalize on missing or not scoring last week and using this advantage of starting at the front of the field to really catch up in points and put themselves at the top of the championship and in contention.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the circuit, though. We started off the season with a classic at Interlagos, moving straight over towards Suzuka, equally as famous and equally as adored. How do you think these guys are going to find it? Because normally in an F1 car, this is probably the most rewarding track when you get it right. An F2 car, a little bit lazier, a little bit worse on traction. Do we think we're going to see the same levels of confidence experienced by some of these drivers today?
I think we're definitely going to see who has put in the time and the effort in the midweek in practice, because I feel like this circuit, if you haven't put any effort in, is really going to show, because Sector 1 is so flowing that getting one corner wrong and it's going to set you up for disaster throughout the rest of the sector. 130R is not going to be flat out in these F2 cars unless you've maybe got the setup spot on, but I do feel like it's highly unlikely it's going to be flat through here. And but on braking with these cars, braking is quite difficult, and you've got to almost over-rotate the car sometimes to get that rotation through the corner and gain you time. I think the Casio triangle is going to be rewarding there to kind of lock up the brakes slightly, catch the car, really hook it over to the right and open up the left hand, and that's going to really give you a lot of time through the final corner. But for the rest of the corners, there's not really any of that. It's just a little dab of the brakes and just being patient with the car. I think, you know, there's no aerodynamics on these cars. It's all about being patient.
Absolutely. We're going to see who's really got that confidence, and like you said, who has put the work in. We're obviously looking at the pole sitter for the sprint race, Dirk Chocolate, and the theme that we've seen in the last few sprint races has been the driver that starts on pole, or at least on the front row, does seem to pull out a decent advantage. They manage to keep clear of the carnage that usually ensues in that midfield, and they usually waltz away out in front. Can we expect something similar here? Obviously, Dirk, we know, has some pedigree, was in F1 previously, had some fairly decent performances throughout his F1 career. Are we expecting him to do it? We've got the likes of Zach RC towards the front, Devil Noob, like you said, Hoodie Pete. Are they going to be able to challenge this Roden Carlin?
I think Dirk's going to have a very strong performance here today. I think with Vic on the on the front row of the grid alongside him. Now, her showing last season wasn't, you know, up there towards the front end of the field. She did slowly fall through the grid in the sprint races. So I think Dirk's got to, you know, just make sure he gets off to a good start, gets off the line well, and he should be first into turn one. And then from there, he needs to hope there's no safety cars and he can build that lead. Because if there's any safety cars, it's going to slow you, pull you back in. But he dictates the pace. He will dictate where we go from the front. And unless he does something like Daniel Gilligan, where he pits from a sprint race and throws away the race win, then I think it's highly unlikely we're going to see Dirk Chocolate, you know, further down the field.
And of course, no Daniel Gilligan this week. Had a bit of a hooner last time out, spinning a couple of times in that middle sector of Interlagos. Unfortunate, but we hope to see him back in F2 and in the commentary box for F1 next week. Looking at the championship leader, F1 Alex, starting from 20th. He was used to starting towards the back. We've got a car facing the wrong way, though. Who's this? Is this Sproe in the high tech in 16th on the grid? Yes, it is. Something very interesting has happened here, because he's dropped it on the back stretch on the run up to 130R.
Yeah, I don't know what Sproat's doing there. Maybe just warming up the tyres. It's very difficult to warm up the tyres in these F2 cars. You really have to be aggressive on the brake and on the throttle at the same time. I made the mistake at Baku where I was trying to weave the car as much as possible, and I got about 30% tyre wear on the first laps. You definitely don't want to do that. Just want to hold the brakes, hold the throttle to gain the temperature, and then get yourself ready for the start of this Japanese Grand Prix.
Everybody lining up on the grid. The nerves will be jangling. Jess Gamer is the third driver to be disqualified. We had an interesting incident, I think, between King Henry and Adam Sanderson. Guys at the back lining up. Hayden, do you want to take us through the start of the sprint race?
I sure can. All the cars lined up for the Japanese Grand Prix. The lights are coming on now. The engines are revving in the Formula 2 cars, and we go racing. There we go. A little bit delayed on the start lights, but we go racing for the start of this Japanese Grand Prix. Dirk Chocolate leads the way for the time being. Only Vic holding second place. Yours sincerely, the Dam's teammate, holding rank as well. Further in the background, it looks like there's a few position changes. Hoodie Pete's got off to a fantastic start, up to Mr. Dale is up into P13 from near enough the back of the grid, trying to wind their way through as there looks like there was a Red Bull car just falling off into the background then. I think that was Jess Game, Sally for her.
Yep, absolutely. The high-tech car of Jess Game. We've got Patterson moving forward. Brilliant start, like you said, from Mr. Dale, already on the back of Adam Sanderson. A lot of cars bunched up as we come through Dunlop Curve and into Degner number 1, but it is Dirk Chocolate comfortably out in front. Bit of a train forming us up the inside, and Adam Sanderson falls off the road. Number of cars flying over the runoff area, and we've got a yellow flag to boot as well. Bit of damage, not sure who that was for. I think it might have been last week's race winner as Devon Butler goes into F1 Alex, struggling to keep up with it. Yellow flag still in that middle sector. Carnage going through the Degners, people struggling to get the car slowed down. Dirk Chocolate, Only Vic, and yours sincerely, the top three, managing to avoid the contact. But F1 Alex, I think, has come a cropper.
Yeah, it looks like it hasn't gone great for F1 Alex off the start there, or Adam Sanderson or King Henny. Both of those two losing 7 positions. Of course, we saw King Henny. He got disqualified on the formation lap, so the tyres would have been absolutely freezing for the start. But things are going very well. They're going amazingly for Dirk Chocolate up at the front. He's leading by 2 seconds now over Only Vic. It looks like the Dam's two drivers, they might switch positions now as they head into 130R. We've got Yorsin Silly on the inside of Only Vic. He sticks his nose up in there. They go wheel to wheel. He backs out of it, and thankfully they don't come together. Hoodie Pete also sneaking up the inside there, and he goes right the inside. And unfortunately there for yours sincerely, they've gone around, they've collected. It looks like F1 Scott, I think, might have got caught up in that as well. But things have gone amazingly for Mr. Dale. He is flying at the moment in this sprint race. We're going on to lap 2 at the moment, and he is up into 6th position. Patterson also gaining 6 places in this race, and these guys are having an absolute stonker.
Absolutely crazy opening lap. People flying off the road at every corner. I think we had 3 or 4 guys going off through 130R. But yeah, it was yours sincerely who got caught out. Hoodie Pete sticking his nose in there. Is that Dale picking up damage into the back of the frame of Patterson? I think it was. And after the beautiful start for the Campos driver, that's going to be a significant amount of front downforce lost.
Yeah, it looks like he's missing his front right side end plate, and it's showing right now as we've got F1 Damien having a look at the inside, now the outside into the Degners, decides against it. It's not really an overtaking spot, as there's 2 cars round us, Only Vic and JD Devil, and now Mr. Dale's gone round as well, and this has surely got to lead to a safety car. Yes, it is a virtual safety car. Mr. Dale, after having an incredible start at the beginning of this Japanese Grand Prix, moving himself up into the top 5. It's all come undone. He has a lot of damage on that front end, and round Japan, you're going to need that aero.
The Degners catching everybody out. Dale getting caught up in there. Yours sincerely down in 17th. The 2 Dams with 2nd and 3rd coming into the Castillo Triangle on the previous lap. Now 17th and 18th is only Vic and JD Devil who came together. We have got our virtual safety car. We're going to need a highlights clip so we can go over all of the action we've seen. I think more drivers have got front wing damage than haven't. Zach RC bashing into the side of Dragonflies, who falls off the road as well into the gravel at the exit of Spoon Curve. I think we've got Adam Sanson going wide as well. Zach RC actually came off worse in that little incident. People struggling to keep it clean. Like we saw last season, the 2 Premiums have come out nicely though in 2nd and 3rd. And then we've got a big gaggle of cars stuck behind the Trident of Damien.
Battle between 2 championship contenders at the moment. We've got Sproat having a look on the wounded Mr. Dale, who runs wide out of the last corner. That's going to open the door for Sproat on the inside as they head down the start-finish straight here at Suzuka. But it looks like Mr. Dale was running a lot less aero around this circuit at the moment, so it's going to take a lot through the corners from Sproat to try and sneak one up the inside, but he's going to have that advantage. He's got all of his front wing intact, and he needs to keep it there because Mr. Dale's going to keep on making mistakes. Hand over foot now into the first part of the corners. Mr. Dale again defending very nicely. And I'll tell you who that virtual safety car worked out perfectly for. Dirk Chocolate. 4-second lead at the front of this sprint race as Dale runs wide. Sproat around the outside. Can he hold it with Mr. Dale on the inside of him? And that is an amazing move right around the outside before they head into Dunlop. And Sproat is up in a 5th.
Blink and you'll miss it, Motorsport. You cannot take your eyes off this. Dale on all the wrong parts of the racetrack going through the first sector, and G-Watt's looking very racy behind this wounded Campos car as Sproat dashes off into the distance and will try and put some gap between himself and the Campos behind. Big Q forming behind the driver in 6th place. Of G-Watt's Duncan B-Roy up and down. F1 Scott joined the back of that group as well, as is F1 Axe, who also has damage in the 2nd Campos car. Like you said though, 4.5 seconds almost the gap for Dirk Chocolate. All of his Christmases have come right at the start of April.
Yeah, Mr. Dale's going to need to be smart now. He's going to have to wind it back in. It's very easy for him to lose his head when something doesn't go his way, but now he needs to bring it back under control. Play the defensive game. He doesn't have all his front wing, and he needs to stop doing that. Ran a little bit wide out of the Spoon Curve. He might have got away with getting a track limits warning, but he needs to make sure he doesn't get too many of those because he's going to be holding up a massive train, and one single 3-second time penalty can make him drop all the way from 6th down to potentially even out of the points. Well, definitely out of the points because only 8 positions score points in the sprint race. Runs it wide at the Casio Triangle. He needs to get it all tidy back in to make sure he's not under attack from G-Watts, but gets fantastic exit. And there we go. Mr. Dale decides to bail out of that, takes a new front wing, and he's going to have to hope for a safety car now for some points in this sprint race.
He's left the driver behind. G-Watt's in a spot of bother, though. Big Q now sat behind the Invicta car. Duncan potentially having a look into turn number 1, but not quite close enough. 5-second penalty for speeding in the pits. Duncan falls off the racetrack. That's going to allow B-Roy to sneak up the inside, but they're going to go side by side through the S's. This could be a little bit nasty. And what's going on there? Is that G-Watt's going slowly? Have we got a safety car? No, everyone seems to be going very slowly for some reason. The 2 Van Alstel cars continue to squabble over 8th and 9th place. B-Roy still trying to get involved as well. Duncan and up and down squabbling for that final points paying position.
Here we go into the Dunlop curve now. Upandas having a look up his teammate, who also has front wing damage. Duncan there on the left, end plate missing as they go into the Degners. Not really an overtaking spot, but Duncan backs out of it. But Upandas runs it wide. I believe I saw him doing that earlier on the first lap, not learning from his mistakes. And now that's going to allow F1 Scott, who had an amazing debut or full-time debut last time out of the Brazilian Grand Prix. He also has a little bit front wing damage. I don't know if there's any drivers on the grid who don't have front wing damage at the moment, but F1 Scott moves himself up into P9 and is now hunting those points positions. Looks like we've got a crash further back. Yes, it's JD Devil Noob again has got into a little bit of spot bother. He has got his front wing intact, but maybe just lost the rear end upon exit out of the hairpin.
F1 Scott getting balked behind the Van Amersfoort of Duncan going through Spoon Curve. And look, here comes Upandas. Gets a little bit messy on the exit as they bang tyres and almost throw into the Armco on the left-hand side. Surely we can't be 3 wide into 130R. We need to use our brain here, guys, because this could be an aeroplane crash. I think the 2 Van Amersfoort cars are going to get through cleanly. F1 Scott, no, they don't. They spin in synchronization. Caught up in it as well as F1 Scott. And I think as the Trident goes through as well, this could be a huge accident as people rejoining a little bit unsafely. And somehow nobody is an innocent bystander, but the 2 Van Amersfoorts spinning in sympathy for each other and just collecting F1 Scott in that as well.
Very lucky more drivers didn't get caught up in that. Duncan deciding to bail out of it as well, change that front wing, come into the box. But very sad there for F1 Scott. Our championship contenders have not had a good race today, but I'll tell you who has, just very sneakily. He's snuck himself in there just by keeping it clean and staying out of all of this mess. Is F1 Alex. He's up into the points now. 1 points position in P8. Does have a little bit of front wing end plate damage though, and isn't really around any drivers to gain on positions. But for him, whilst Dale and F1 Scott are being caught up in a lot of mess, this is going to work great into his favour. Sprout, though, another one in the hunt for the championship in P5, scoring some really decent points. But Dirk Chocolate maintaining the gap at the top. Although Hoodie P is just raking him in maybe about 1 or 2 tenths per lap. But it's nothing to worry Dirk Chocolate at the moment.
I think Sprout fancies a podium here, right on the back of the Trident of Damien, and then not too far away from the second Premier of Patterson as well. The other Trident of Adam Sanson squabbling away with Yours Sincerely into the hairpin, and I think the Dams is going to win that little duel as Adam Sanson fails to get up into ninth place, but we'll have a second bite of the cherry, you would imagine, on the run down into turn number 14 through 130R. They come up towards Spoon now, but yeah, Dirk Chocolate being reeled in a little bit by Hoodie Pete, but this race, it's been absolutely gift wrapped to him. He just has to open it at the end of the race.
Yeah, everyone was really well behaved at the Brazilian Grand Prix last week. There wasn't any safety cars and there wasn't really any sort of carnage. That's all got out the window. This time around at Japan, Adam Sanderson again on the attacks. We've got a fight going on up at the lead. Sprout has overtaken F1 Damien for P4. And looking back now, Adam Sanderson now under attack, attacking Yours Sincerely into the Casio triangle. Dives up the inside. Can he get it slowed down? He can. And Yours Sincerely just about holds on for the time being. But Adam will go again, and he needs to get past Yours as quickly as possible. I believe he's got his complete front wing intact. If he can get past Yours Sincerely, he can then go on the attack, potentially, of F1 Alex and hunt down that last remaining point. Has a look up the inside of turn 1. Yours Sincerely with that front wing damage just couldn't get the car turned in enough through the first corner. And now Adam has been unleashed to hunt down F1 Alex for that last points position. There's about 5 laps remaining. Let's see if he can do it.
Yeah, I think Yours Sincerely maybe spooked off the road a little bit as well by the Trident coming up the inside. Wasn't quite sure what Adam Sanson was going to do, but in the end, he made it work and got up into ninth place. Dale picks up the fastest lap. Going to be to No Avail, though, down in 15th and 21 seconds behind JD Devil Noob. We wait to see if Spirit can catch the 2 Pramers. B-Roy right on the back of G-Watts in the battle for 6th and 7th as they go through Degner to the Alpine livery cars. Are we going to see a lunge into the hairpin? No, we're not. B-Roy elects to sit behind. For now, it's Invicta versus ART. Who's going to come out on top in this little fight? G-Watts does have a penalty looming over his head, though.
I'm just watching a little bit of a battle going on further down the field, and it's gone from a bad day to even worse for F1 Scott. Attempted an overtake on Jess into the second part of the Degners. Unfortunately, just drove into the back of her and has damaged his front wing even more. So that's unfortunate there for F1 Scott. He's going to have to just wind it back in, reset himself, and go again for the feature race. There's a lot more points on the line in the feature race, so it's not really too bad that he's missing out here today. F1 Alex, of course, only scoring 1 point, and we've got Sprout up in P4. Scoring some good points. B-Roy, though, overtakes G-Watts in just before 130R. Nice overtake there from B-Roy to move himself up into P6. And G-Watts and B-Roy have got enough of a gap, although G-Watts does have a 3-second time penalty, and F1 Alex might sneak another point here.
Yeah, F1X could jump up into 7th place. Adam Sanderson not really gaining, has actually still got the downs of yours sincerely glued to the back of that Triton. I think has made a little mistake somewhere in the final sector and could be under pressure on the run down into turn number 1. Lap 7 as we cut the beam with the midfield runners. Dirk still 4.4 seconds out in front. Adam Sanderson comfortable down into turn 1. Bit of a queue forming behind 11th place only Vic. JD Devilnew trying to recover from getting involved in early skirmishes, as did most of the field. Trying to get up towards that top 10, but is a long, long way away from the points paying positions.
JD Devilnew, after getting past Jess and F1 Scott, now on the hunt of only Vic, heading into the winding Sector 1 of the S's. Just being patient for the time being behind Vic at the moment. JD Devilnew does have a 3-second time penalty. It won't be for any points. It will just be for all of the glory. But looking further ahead, Sproat has now winded in Patterson for a potential podium, despite starting near the back of the field. 12 positions gained, one of the best overtakers of the day so far. F1 Alex also up 12 positions and B-Roy up 11. But Sproat's going to have to be patient. There's a long way still left to go as Patterson runs it wide into the Spoon curve. But that's actually going to help him. It's going to let him get a better exit out of Spoon all the way up into 130R. And as you can see, just sneaks away from Sproat ever so slightly. I don't know whether Sproat would be able to catch up Patterson, catch up to Hoodie Pete if they did dismiss Patterson. We've got a yellow flag further back. It looks like you Pandas or Duncan are getting into a little bit more spot of bother, unfortunately, for those guys. But Sproat on the attack of Patterson, a few laps remaining. Let's see if they can get on the podium.
Could be his opportunity. Very slow out of a Casio triangle. This should be like candy from a baby with the help of DRS down the main straight as they start lap number 8. This should be the podium for Sproat in that high-tech car. Through we go. Patterson is relegated down into 4th place. Has got to be careful, but running wide and picks up a penalty as well. A crucial mistake. 3-second time penalty. That could be the podium charge over, and that shows you how tiny the difference between getting a mega result and absolutely making a huge blunder and throwing it all away.
Disaster there for Sproat. Not only are they potentially going to lose a position now to Patterson that they've just taken, but also F1 Damien sneaking in on that penalty. They're only 1.7 behind. F1 Damien now needs to be looking at his radar, needs to be looking at who's ahead of him, and needs to stay within that 3-second window of Sproat at the moment. For Sproat, they've just got to run away. They've got to use this pace advantage that they've been showing so far in this sprint race to try and gap those guys behind him in as few laps as possible. Dirk Chocolate absolutely flying in this race at the moment. 5.5 seconds is the gap. I don't know if Hoodie Pete now has just given up on that charge and is consolidating and making sure they finish in P2. So it looks like we've got a bit of a disaster happening.
I think it's B-Roy.
B-Roy has B-Roy's fallen. G-Watts as well. So those two, they were so close on track together, both in the points. And now Adam Sanderson has snuck himself in there. And he's also on the hunt of F1 Alex, who does not have his full front wing. So Adam Sanderson could be looking at a potential P6 in this race.
Yeah, we weren't unfortunately able to catch what went on. We just saw the little pile-up going on through the hairpin join them. And off in the pickets was the ART of B-Roy. Disaster falling outside of the points-paying positions and probably won't get that place back. F1 Alex has moved up into 7th place, but does have Adam Sanderson in the Trident right on the back. G-Watts has got a little bit of damage, as does the Campos of F1 Alex. And then you can see in the background, yours sincerely, right on the back of this train as well. Dirk Chocolate has started lap number 9. Still 5 seconds clear. Sproat has managed to drop Patterson in that second. Prema car is actually coming under pressure from the Trident of Damien. And then we've got this gaggle of cars, 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th battling all the way to the flag.
This is really good for F1 Alex here. If they can stay in G-Watts' DRS, they don't have to worry about overtaking him because, of course, they have got that 3-second time penalty as Adam Sanderson runs it really wide out of the exit of turn 1. Then we've got Yorson City just getting the back end out through there. Now, they don't want to do that because they need to get on the back of F1 Alex. There's not only one position on G-Watts on the cards here, but F1 Alex does have damage. They're limping at the moment, so they need to try and get a move on, get as close to F1 Alex as possible and put a little bit of pressure on them to make them make that mistake through these tricky corners, because for F1 Alex, if they sit behind G-Watts, they can get the DRS and they have that protection down the straights. But through the corners, that's where they're going to be suffering. And that, of course, is where Adam Sanderson needs to go on the attack. As we've got F1 Damien going on the attack of Patterson, runs it wide through the hairpin. Patterson, unfortunately, giving that one away, and that now plays into F1 Damien's favor. They now need to keep within this 3-second gap of Sproat. It's 2.4 at the moment. They've just got to make sure they don't lose 6/10 of a second, and also got to hope that Patterson doesn't go on the attack of them, although it looks like Patterson's losing time. So I think they should be covered off from that. They just need to make sure they stay within the 3 seconds.
Yeah, textbook move from Sprite up into the podium. From Damien, up into 4th place. F1 Scott continuing to have a ding-dong battle with people in the midfield, squabbling with only Vic and Jess Gamer. Further back, Patterson will try and stick like glue to the back of this trident to potentially pick up a free spot later on. Sprite's getting fairly close as we start the penultimate lap, but does still have a decent chunk of work to do. G-Watts is the guy we've got to be watching, though, as a queue starts to form behind. I think we saw B-Roy going wide through 130R in the back of shot, as these guys are going to start the penultimate lap of the race, and F1 Alex can just sort of sit behind and pick up this 6th place, which would be a fairly decent effort from last on the grid with that front wing damage.
Yeah, this is working really well for F1 Alex, but they might actually go on the attack of G-Watts into turn 1. No, they just weren't close enough. So this is still working well for F1 Alex. They need to stay behind at the moment, but just try and keep Adam behind them as well. Adam, though, is going to be looking for every opportunity. He has that aerodynamic performance that F1 Alex is just missing out on. And you can just see Adam just switching from left to right, looking all over the back of F1 Alex at the moment, trying to sneak their way through as they head now in towards the Dunlop curve, up the hill, and now running into the Deglers. 2 very tricky corners in an F1 car, even more difficult in an F2 car. You've got to get on the brakes. You've got to throw it in there. And he has a little look up the inside Degler 2. Wouldn't be wise to go for an overtake there, but maybe just trying to spook F1 Alex into that corner. Try and make a mistake out of them as they head now in towards the hairpin. Adam Sanderson still being patient. G-Watts runs it wide. Now that's not going to help out F1 Alex. They need to stay behind him, but Adam Sanderson just a little bit too eager on the throttle there.
Yeah, a bit too aggressive on the old loud pedal, and that could potentially cost him a shot at getting past the Campos of F1 Alex. Dirk Chocolate going through 130R now. He's going to start the final lap of this race over 6 seconds clear. Sprite has managed to catch right up to the back of Hoodie Pete in the battle for 2nd and 3rd place. Obviously, the Prema, unless any dramas before him on the final lap. Little look into the Casio triangle from the driver in 3rd place, but Hoodie Pete is wise to it. Manages to hold on to 2nd place for the time being and should finish there unless he manages to lose 3 seconds on this final lap. But it has been dominance from Dirk. 6 seconds clear, but this little battle for 2nd, I think, is going to carry on. Will Hoodie Pete play this smart down into turn number 1? He should just let it go through. They almost come to blows on the apex, still throwing it up the inside. They're going to dance through this first sector like a ballerina on a stage made of asphalt, but through goes Sprite up into 2nd place. Hoodie Pete will relinquish that, but should get it back by the end of the outing.
That was not good there for Sprite. They didn't need a battle through the first couple of corners because that's then handed the time back to F1 Damien. They needed a nice, simple overtake using the DRS down into turn 1. Unfortunately, that was not what they got delivered to them. Sprite up into 2nd on track at the moment. Won't be able to reel in Dirk Chocolate as he is too far ahead on track. But can F1 Damien stay within the 3 seconds of the high-tech driver and see if they can get themselves onto the podium? Further back, Adam Sanderson still trying to hunt down a few more points in this sprint race. Still stuck behind F1 Alex, who's been playing a defensive masterclass so far this race.
Yeah, and with one hand tied behind his back, he's done an excellent job. Off goes B-Roy in the back of shot, going through Degner number 2. It's down in 10th place. Here's the lunge up the inside. Was it a clean move? I think there was a little bit of wheel banging. Almost getting involved is yours sincerely. He gets a bit wobbly on the exit, but through goes Adam Sanderson. That is textbook stuff into 7th place. Oh, we're going to see a retaliation on the run down into Spoon Curve. Can F1 Alex find a gap? He's got to use the smallest opportunity. He can't quite make it. Through goes Adam Sanderson, and he can set his sights on that 6th place that should be handed to him. But going through the Casio triangle, we've hardly looked at Dirk Chocolate because he's been so far out in front. He's just been able to cruise to this victory, and his first outing in an F2 car is, just like Mr. Dale last week, a victory across the line in the road in Carlin, and it is comfortable for Dirk Chocolate. A Sprite will cross the line in 2nd, but probably get bumped off the podium. Yes, Damien gets there in the end. Sprite down into 4th place.
5th place across the line should be Patterson, and it is, but we'll watch this little gaggle of cars. Adam Sanderson and F1 Alex, and it looks like Adam Sanderson might just get G-Watts to the line. They don't, but they get them anyway on the penalty. F1 Alex in the points, and yours sincerely snatching the last point in the sprint race. The redemption arc is on for Dirk Chocolate, and what a battle we could potentially be seeing between themselves and Mr. Dale, both relegated from Formula 1, looking to get back there this season before the new F1 24 game. They both got a sprint race win to their belts, and I'm really eager to see what Dirk Chocolate can do later on in the feature.
Disappointment for some of the championship protagonists. Dale down in 11th, getting caught up in a number of incidents, as did F1 Scott, who, whilst getting stuck in, it was usually battling for places well outside of the top 10, finishing in 12th ahead of Jess Gamer. Devil Noob could have been towards the front if he didn't get involved in a skirmish earlier on. Only Vic, and then you Pandas, and we wait for Zach RC and King Henny to round out our 18 finishers of the sprint race. And that was exactly what we needed after last week. It was a little bit mundane at times, but that, sir, was very, very exciting.
So much chaos, and that is exactly what we expect with this F2 grid. Maybe it's just me. You know, you need me in the comms bot core on track, and there will be chaos in a Formula 2 race. I was missing last week. I wasn't there, but it was very well behaved. But the gloves are off, and they really were fighting out there today. Mr. Dale picks up the fastest lap of the race as well, so they will get 1 extra point added to their names. That is very good for themselves in this championship charge as well. But a fantastic race there from Dirk Chocolate, just led from the start. That's what they needed to do, and there's a lot of pressure. It sounds very simple. Okay, you just had 11 laps of driving with no one. It's an easy race, but it all came down to that start. If they just bogged down ever so slightly, only Vic would have been past them. Your Sin City would have been all over them. And then who knows what could happen in that turn 1. So an amazing job there from Dirk Chocolate to take home his first race win in the Creator Series.
Sets us up very, very nicely for the feature race. Final standings on your screen there. Dirk Chocolate 6.4 seconds. Comfortably ahead of Hoodie Pete and F1 Damien. Spirit may have got the fastest lap, was dumped off the podium with that corner cutting penalty. Patterson, Adam Sanderson, championship leader F1 Alex and Yulson C round out your top 8 point scorers. B-Roy just missed out. Messy race for the ART driver. G-Watts being pushed out of the points as well, courtesy of a pit lane speeding infringement. Dale, F1 Scott, Jess Gamer, Devil Noob. Only Vic, Upanda, Zakasi, Duncan, who we saw had that massive crash with his teammate earlier, and Dragon Flies complete running all.
Very, very fun race there in F2. Thoroughly enjoyed being on this side of it for once. Obviously, there's so much more stress when you're in one of those F2 cars. If anyone's watched my streams, the heart rate monitor getting up to about 180, 160 in those races. A bit more chilled in there, but great to see all of the action unfolding from this side of the combox this time around. And I'm really hopeful for this feature race once again, but now it's going to be kind of switched. It's not going to be as chaotic. I don't think people need to expect as many safety cars, although we didn't have any full safety cars, just the one virtual. But I think coming into this race now, people are going to be a little bit more well behaved. It's all going to come down to qualifying. Qualifying is going to be in slightly wet conditions. But it's going to be very interesting to see what can happen in this feature race later. But I'm expecting those usual protagonists up at the front, fighting all the way till the end.
Well, with a little bit of moisture thrown in, I think we could maybe see some big names caught out by that. One-shot qualifying coming up, of course. It does usually cause a few of our leading contenders to trip over themselves a little bit and maybe invalidate or just make a mistake. I think last week, what was it? I think we only had 9 drivers actually complete a representative time, and that was at Brazil in the dry. This is Suzuka with a little bit of moisture on the circuit. That could be very, very interesting. We could have even less drivers completing a flying lap.
Yeah, potentially. I don't think it's going to be as strict as Brazil has been, although turn 1 is very easy to run wide, even just by the slightest millimeter, but that's going to cost you. Turn 2 as well, both of them connected together. It's very easy through there. Through the S's, it's unlikely that you're going to really cut a corner or extend a corner through there. Degner can be a little bit tricky, but if you run wide, you're going to be touching the gravel, and that's your lap time gone anyway. Looking around the rest of the track, I suppose the spoon curve could be one that could trip up drivers. 130R, if they're really pushing the limit and trying to carry as much speed through the corner there, could be some track limits there. And as I'm going through it, there's track limits potential places everywhere. So it might actually be the same as what we had in Brazil, where only 9 drivers complete a lap. But for Mr. Dell, they're going to want to be right up there this time and not have to start in the mid-pack, because it definitely cost them. Yeah,
we did obviously see on the opening couple of laps, and to be fair, with the likes of B-Roy throughout the entire race, people struggling to keep it within the white line. So when you're pushing flat out on a quali lap, as I've just seen a Red Bull livery car go smashing into the wall going through turn number 1, as everyone gets the F1 lobby child out of them whilst we wait for the one-shot quali to be set up. Was there anyone who was a little bit disappointed? Obviously, we spoke about Dale and F1 Scott. We wondered how they would manage trying to force their way through the traffic. Dale started off brilliantly, got up into, I think he was P6, then just tumbled and his race fell apart like a deck of cards. stacked into a nice little castle. And F1 Scott was pretty much always in the wars, battling very hard with people he should be beating, and beating pretty comfortably.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for Dale, it's difficult in these scenarios because you have such a flyer, and I had it in Saudi, in all fairness, where you get really lucky and you get that amazing start where you're right up at the front of the field, and then all of a sudden, all it takes is a little cluster of cars that you come up to the front of. And for Dale, it's not a case of I need to get through these guys as quickly as possible. Whatever happens, if I crash, I don't care. It doesn't matter. You know, they want to keep their car intact. They do have to be a little bit patient, but unfortunately, all it takes is one driver to make an error, spin in front of you, or just catch you off guard, and that's it. Your race could be completely done. I think someone else who might be a little bit disappointed, Zach RC. They had a really strong season last season, just missed out on the playoffs. And I think to be down in 17th, I don't think that's representative of their pace, and they're going to be looking to put themselves further up in this feature.
Certainly a second opportunity for our drivers to get it right. Those did fail to do so first time out. What is it like going into this one-shot qualifying session, though? Are there any nerves? You know, you've only got one opportunity. Obviously, in the F1 series, which a few of our drivers do race in, either as a reserve or previously as a full-time driver, you get the full quali system, so you get that time to warm up, get yourself going, find a rhythm around a circuit like Suzuka, rhythm's very, very important. How do you manage this, and how do you get yourself up for a lap like this?
It's so difficult, and every driver kind of takes it a little bit differently. I think Rob last season, he's got so much pace in him, and he really showed that last season. I think F1 Alex as well, really quick in the qualifying sessions, and they could just blast it out and not worry and not be cautious, not worry about those track limits. They push as hard as they can. They still keep it within the white lines. For myself, I was a little bit more cautious. I'm pushing hard, but I'm just making sure that I may be holding, you know, an extra couple of % back, just to make sure I don't overextend and invalidate my lap times. Because at the end of the day, you know, if your championship rival starting on pole position and you're starting in P5, you're still only 4 places behind them. And the race is a long race. You can pick up a couple of positions here and there and maybe get the strategy right, or a safety car play into your favor and you're right up there. But if you're just pushing that little bit extra, then unfortunately you could be right down at the back of the grid, and you've got it all to do. And especially in these feature races, it's a lot harder to get back up through the field very early on, because not everybody is getting held up by maybe a few of the slower drivers at the front.
And I think in this one-shot quali session, we are going to see a bit more of a field spread than we saw in Brazil. This is one of the most technical circuits. You've got to be really, really precise. Almost unfolds like an orchestra or a musical composition when each section harmonizes with each other into a symphony of speed and accuracy and precision. Then you crescendo into the blast through 130R. We slam those brakes on into the Casio triangle, where people find it so difficult to get it stopped. Obviously, we've had famous instance there in the past, 2 McLarens of Senna and Prost, the one that stands out to everybody. Will we have a moment like that? I'm sure we will see some flashpoints throughout the feature race when our faster drivers are towards the front of the field.
Yeah, certainly, as everybody's getting ready for the one-shot qualifying session now. One person I want to talk about, to be fair, Adam Sanderson, got caught up in a lot of drama early on in the race, but I think was lucky to keep their front wing intact. They weren't really making the inroads on F1 Alex that I saw, that I was hoping they would do after they were unleashed from yours sincerely, maybe carrying maybe slight sideboard damage or floor damage. It's not going to affect you as much as if you are in an F1 car, but you'll be lacking slight amount of time there. But I think a very strong performance from them to get themselves back up into P6 and put themselves slightly further up the order in the championship.
And after starting 13th, it was a nice little drive from Adam Sanderson. The same, I have to say, for Sprite. It started 16th. We didn't mention that enough, probably. Coming through to finish second on the road. Ended up only 4th with that penalty. Other drivers moved through nicely. Obviously, F1 Alex started last, coming through to finish an excellent 7th. And even B-Roy, who had a bit of a messy end to the race. We saw him in the back of shot a few times, running wide through the likes of Degna 2 and 130R. Still came through to finish 9th, just outside the points from 17th. So it's obviously a track where overtaking is possible and people find it very easy to overtake. But the caveat is, everyone finds it very easy to make a bit of a mess of certain calls.
Yeah, a bit of shame there for B-Roy. A very strong opening round in Brazil. Put themselves up to 4th in the championship. But maybe showing the B-Roy that we saw in previous seasons, where, you know, it's not as strong there from B-Roy, unfortunately. So we'll have to wait and see what he can do in the rest of this race weekend, and hope for him that he can get himself back up at the front, potentially even in this championship battle.
Certainly a driver that you would expect to see residing around those playoffs come the end of our slightly shortened F2 season, before we going on the brand new game. Everybody can't wait for that. It's coming very, very shortly, I'm sure. Hugely excited. We're just waiting for One Shot Quality to get underway. A few little issues which we can get sorted. Since we have got you here, and we can talk a little bit more about last season, you say your highlight from your F2 campaign was?
Oh, now you take me back. I think it has to be Bahrain last season, to be the first driver to get back-to-back race wins. And I know me and Rob had a little bit of an unspoken rivalry for that. We had the rivalry, of course, across the season, but the rivalry, of course, to try and be the first driver to get not only the race win in the sprint, but also in the feature. It hadn't been done up until Bahrain. I think for me, that race is well and truly up there as the best one so far. For me in F2, and probably in Creator Series as well, it was a really strong showing. And you watch that race, I had an incident on the first lap. I lost my front wing. I then had another incident with Matty, one of my championship rivals, down the start-finish straight. Lost my front wing again. Had to come into the pits. Then I crashed with Rob, another championship rival, with 2 laps to go. I break my floor, I break my front wing, but was able to still rein in those guys on older hard tires and take the race win. And, you know, my heart rate at that point was up at 140, just to say how elated I was at that result. But for me, yeah, one of the best races that I've done in Creator Series, and was such a joy to be a part of it.
What about the playoffs? Obviously, I think everybody enjoyed that. It was a really cool dynamic to introduce. And I think it worked really, really well, especially the fact that we had just 1 point separating our promoted and our relegated driver. How was that dynamic for you?
I look back on it not as fondly as maybe some of the others. I wasn't the driver I wanted to be in that one. Made a few mistakes, and unfortunately, Punju was the worst off it in those. Azerbaijan just made the mistake. Yes, okay, I do feel like he broke a little bit early into that corner, but I am the driver behind, so it's up to me to overtake cleanly, which I did not, sadly, for both of us there. But I think it was a really enjoyable event. I think everybody who took part in it, there was definitely a lot on the line for everybody. And yeah, I'm really excited for the playoffs again this season. And hopefully this season, I'm not a part of it. Hopefully I stay above the bubble in F1.
We did have a fairly decent start, didn't you? Picking up a nice handful of points. First time out in Brazil. Looking forward to this afternoon or this evening's action again.
Yeah, Japan's going to be an interesting one. I think there's a lot of strong drivers, and I think we've got the strongest field in Creator Series that we've ever had so far. If I look at the pace of all the drivers out there, I think I am in that bottom 5 for sure. But these races are long. Anything can happen. A few mistakes here and there. I do think Perya can be a little bit inconsistent at times, so I'm hoping to maybe benefit off there. My goal for this season, I took Dirk Chocolate's seat last season. I'm going to take Fabio's seat this season. I'm going to get him relegated into F2 and take that Ferrari seat. But yeah, I think Japan's going to be good fun tonight, and we'll just have to see what happens for sure.
I think Fabio will be a big fan of listening to that if he is here.
I'm having it. Just like I was having Dirk Chocolate's seat, and look where I am now. I'm in that Red Bull. So, I don't know. Fabio, I'm coming for you.
Wants that scarlet red car. Everybody's got a target on their background. If you do hit the bullseye and get into that car. Still waiting for the one-shot quality to get underway. So try and get a little bit more of a discussion going. Have a little look at the calendar for this F2 campaign. We've got some interesting circuits. Obviously, fan vote next week. We obviously don't know what that will be. Then we've got an interesting sequence of tracks that are all fairly different. We've got China returning there. Then we've got Singapore on the brand new layout. Then Miami, and then we finish with Imola. Very, very different circuits. What are you expecting to come from those configurations?
I think we're going to have some really exciting sprint races, because just like this one, overtaking can be more difficult. Imola, for example, is going to be a tough season finale. It's not just going to be a case of, okay, the guys who are starting at the back, who are in championship contention, they can just fly away from the rest of the field. No, it's not going to be like that at all. They are going to be, having to be patient. They're going to have to wait. They're going to have to really pick their opportunities and place their car very, very smartly to get those positions off the other drivers and try and beat their title rivals. So it's going to be a fun season. I think Singapore as well. We haven't been there in F2. A lot of these tracks we haven't been in F2. I don't think any of them. I think even the fan vote will not be doing Monaco for this fan vote because it was selected last time. So it's going to be interesting to see what the fans are going to be picking. And let us know in the chat, which track would you like F2 to go to next round?
Yeah, Singapore, I'm really, really looking, especially on the new configuration, which personally I think is so much better. So, rather than that horrible little tunnel section that was not fun at all. Miami, I think that the very twisty middle, which I think could catch a few people out. That could be absolute carnage, especially in the sprint race when everyone's trying to get back into what would be a representative position and then finishing. And another legendary circuit in Imola, that should be maybe a little bit more to expectation.
Yeah, I think so. I think it should be certainly one of the better races for this season, and I think we're going to have a really, really strong performance from a lot of the drivers. I'm just really excited to see what those guys at the back. I think Dale showed a lot of promise from the back this time around at Japan, and yes, okay, they got caught up in the end after a couple of laps. I don't think it was necessarily their fault, just a few little argy-bargy happening in front of them, unfortunately into the Degners. But I do think that they have really shown some strong performance, and most importantly for me, just that patience, because I didn't think they had it in them, and it's been very, very strong there from Dale.
Absolutely. I think he'll be chomping at the bit to get going once again, as I managed to ninja kick buzzed into my life there. Looking forward towards one qualifying. We spoke about some of the contenders we would expect to see towards the front. I'm expecting Dale to come back strong. Obviously made a bit of a mess of it last week, as did a few of the big names. It was F1X who ended up half a second clear out in front. We could see a gap like that again, because, like we said earlier, the nature of this circuit, we will see a bit more of a field spread, you would imagine. Expecting to see GWATS up there as well. It's had a very, very strong start to the season. If results maybe don't show that, but the pace has certainly been there. Hoodie Pete was really nice to see him getting back towards the front as well. Had a disappointing end to last season, carried that through to the season opener as well. I expect to see both Pramers sliding definitely inside that top 10.
Yeah, got a lot of love for Hoodie Pete. He was my teammate last season in F2, and whilst we're not really showcasing a Constructors' Championship like we do in Formula 1, because it's all about yourself and it's all about you pushing for the playoff spots, but he really helped me out in situations. I think Bahrain, the second race win, I don't think I would have got that had it not been for Hoodie Pete masterfully holding up Rob for even if it was just a couple of corners. It still slowed him down enough for me to get that gap and hold that position. So a lot of love for Hoodie Pete, and I hope that he has a very strong season.
Absolutely. After not making the best of starts, certainly righting the wrongs of Brazil in the sprint race, and we'll hope him to continue that form on. Somebody else that I think we need to talk about is JD Devilnoob, who's actually been fairly decent in the sprint races, but wasn't able to string together in the back half of last season a consistent run into the points. We've seen real flashes of performance from Devilnoob. Do you think he can carry that through? Missed last week, so obviously starting 1 week behind everybody else. Do you think he can maybe challenge for those playoff spots?
I think he's got some really good pace within him. He came into F2 later on in the season, so was starting a lot of the sprint races at the front and was able to benefit from that. He gapped the other drivers, he used that to his advantage, and he got a sprint race win early on and nearly had a second one in the Bahrain sprint. Just got him at the final corner. But I do think JD Devilnoob has that pace. The consistency is potentially what they lack, and that's something that they're going to need to really get on top of over the course of the season and try and put themselves nearer the front end.
Obviously picked up a sprint win in Austria in the pouring rain when we had one Mr. Benjamin Daly joining us for a one-off outing, who ended up winning that feature race. Pace from Sproe as well has been exceptional and working really, really nicely. We spoke about earlier, Zach RC has shown some flashes of real pace as well. I'd like to see yours sincerely challenging a little bit further towards the front. There's also been a driver that has promised a decent amount but hasn't been able to deliver consistently. And that probably is the same for B-Roy, who I think everyone was surprised that he didn't find himself in the playoffs after some very, very commendable performances in F1 previously.
Yeah, I think some strong showing from B-Roy last time out, and for those guys who were, up at the top end of the standings last season. And it will be interesting to see whether they can remain consistent like they were last season, still be at the top fighting with those drivers, or, has it been undone with, I think the pace has definitely stepped up this season compared to last season. It was just really myself, Matty, and Rob doing the majority of the practice. Punju definitely up there as well, and F1 Alex. but I do think this season that's been stepped up. Dale's really been sort of motivating. He's been sort of gloating his lap times in the chats, but it's definitely been motivating others to be like, okay, cool, I see what this guy's doing. I'm going to try and beat this, or just try and get as close to as possible. And I think we should be in for a really, really interesting season between him, F1 Alex, F1 Scott, even B-Roy could get himself in there. Spro, if he reserves for enough races, could be in for a championship battle despite only being a reserve, and that could be incredible to see.
Dale definitely oozing confidence. Hopefully that is translated into some very, very good performances. Obviously, scored a duck in that sprint race after getting caught up in plethora of incidents. Now it gives him to reset, and that's what I think he needs, that opportunity just to reset, go again, put your feet back on the ground, try and get pole position, because he's probably the favourite, I would argue.
Yeah, I think for sure Dale and F1 Alex are probably the strongest favourites for this season. The Campos boys both got the race wins last time out. First time the Campos hasn't won, Dirk Chocolate. And do you know what? We're not really putting him too much as a championship contender. Do you reckon we will see Dirk Chocolate up there over the course of the season? Or do you believe that this is just a flash in the pan because of the sprint race pole position?
I think we need a bigger sample size. That's the problem. Really
sounds like sitting on the fence to me.
You really don't know what you're going to get from Dirk. I'm going to back Dirk Chocolate to finish in the playoffs, I think. I'm going to back him to get top 5.
Yeah, I think it definitely has to be his goal for Dirk Chocolate to be up there in the playoffs for sure this season. Although maybe they will enjoy being in F2. You know, I had a lot of love for being in F2 last season. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. The racing was a lot more chaotic, which is something that I enjoy a bit more than the more sweatier league racing aspect that we have in the Formula 1 series. F2 is a bit more of chaos, and you're making a lot more overtakes. It's more fun for the content, for sure. So maybe Dirk Chocolate would just enjoy that and be like, okay, cool, I'll get to the playoffs and then I'll drop out, or I'll just, you know, hold back at the end of the season if I'm not in the championship contention, and I'll just finish P6.
Because we haven't really seen Dirk, you know, chirping up a little bit. Obviously, we've seen Dale trying to talk the talk, and he has shown that he can walk the walk. I wonder if Dirk, too many D's, just going to go under the radar a little bit. Just, you know, accumulate points, be consistent, because that's really what got the likes of someone like Punju into the playoffs last season. F1X just consistently getting top 5s, top 8s, accumulating the points across the season. And that's what got them into the playoffs. Obviously, they were unsuccessful in their attempts to go up, but you'd expect both of those to be challenging, despite the fact that Punju is not with us this week. I've got a very interesting question for you, Dylan. Obviously, you mentioned earlier how you think the standards have increased this season. Would you back yourself to get in the playoffs again if you're in F2?
Oh, I would always back myself. There is no shadow of a doubt. I think over the course of consistency of a season, I think I'd be up there. I mean, my consistency last season was incredible. Not to blow my own trumpet, but apart from Monza, and I knew where I made the mistakes, I went for, okay, cool, it's a safety car. I'm going to box, get new tyres. I'm going to get rid of my 5-second time penalty, and then I should be able to get back up into the top 5 quite easily, overtaking the field with brand new tyres and being one of the faster drivers in the field. But in F2, it's completely opposite to F1. F1, that is the smartest strategy, and any driver who doesn't do that is going to be a sitting duck. In F2, you can hold on with older tyres, and because it's so chaotic and everybody's just trying to, you know, score as many points they can for themselves, even if it's just one, then you just get caught up in this massive cluster. And, you know, for these guys, if there's anybody watching this back, they're going to want to listen to this, that you do want track position in F2. For the majority of the time, track position is vital. Getting those extra few percentage of tyre wear gain on the other drivers, it's just not worth it for the overtakes you're going to have to make, and probably the chaos that you're going to get caught up in. But I would back myself. I think Dale, in terms of one lap pace and the effort and the practice that he's been putting in, I think he would have me. I've never been a qualifier. I think I got one pole position last season in Hungary, but I think over the course of races and a season, I think I could just about edge him.
Wow, some fighting talk then, and I love the confidence, but thankfully we are getting ready to go into our one-shot qualifying session. I'm very excited for this, and if we do add a little bit of unpredictability, the weather, banners could very much be thrown out of the toolbox and up into the air. Very much hoping, as I can confirm, we won't cut to it straight away, but it is a little bit damp.
It is indeed. The rain is falling. It looks to be maybe sort of more intermediate rain weather. And of course, for F2, we do not have intermediate tyres. You're either on the softs or you're on the wets. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the game selects and gives as the best option for the drivers to go out with. And of course, whether the drivers agree to that and whether they do want to stay. So this could be vital. A driver could maybe think, you know what, actually, I could go quicker on softs compared to the full wets. And maybe they could. Maybe the wets might overheat. Or it could be the other way and they just absolutely aquaplane. But let's get on board with a hot lap. And who should we pick? Who should we watch on board with today?
Should we watch the sprint winner, Mr. Dirk Chocolate?
Let's do it.
On board
Dirk
then.
Chocolate.
Yes.
Away you go.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to let you.
Well, running down into the first couple of corners, got to try and swing it through and hope that the car sticks. This is a beautiful first sector, I said earlier. Dancing through the S's like you're a ballerina on a stage made of asphalt as you try and find grip wherever it sees fit. And as we unfold, the symphony of speed, you've got to be so accurate as we come up towards Dunlop corner. Fairly decent start for Dirk Chocolate, although it gets a little bit out of shape on the run up towards Dunlop, and that pushes him outside of the top 10. Not been a very good start. Down to 12th now as we come up towards Degner 1 and Degner 2. I'm expecting to see a few drivers disappear here because we saw many caught out. Dirk taking it very, very carefully and really not attacking it, trying to, well, Adam Sanderson's already gone. We didn't catch it, but crashing, you would imagine, going off into the gravel on the left-hand side, and that is one driver down, relegated to just 19. Into the hairpin we go now before we reach, and this is I don't know if many people know this, but this upcoming corner is actually called 200R. Can you guess why?
I'm going to guess because it's a 200 radius.
Correct.
Is that correct?
It is.
Wow, let's go.
What a stat for you there. Dirk Chocolate has managed to put himself up into 7th place as we come up towards Spoon Curve, trying to stay away from the curves because they can be a magnet for a slip and slide, and he does get on the power a little bit too early and has a bit of a wobble at the rear end of the car. It's Dale currently out in front ahead of F1 Damien, and Spirit and Devil Noob just swapping places. Anyone out of position? I can't see F1 Scott residing just behind Dirk Chocolate. Actually, further down the two, Prama's struggling 12th and 14th through to 130R, certainly not flat, shifting down into 5th gear and towards the Casio triangle. Got to try and attack this, can't leave any time on the table. Dirk would be trying to find as much, uses the drift, but then he gets it all wrong, struggling to get the power down and trying to focus on that exit. Up to the line we go. It's going to be Dale. You would imagine that takes pole position. Massive brown pants moment for Dirk Chocolate as he comes out of the Casio triangle sideways, but he does end up in 7th place, but 2 seconds down on Dale, who is 9/10 clear of everybody else.
I want to say as well, what a fantastic final sector that was for F1 Alex. They were residing down in 10th position and then through the Casio triangle got it absolutely nailed. Managed to get themselves up into P6. I also want to say a huge shout out to Jess Gamer, not usually up there in the qualifying session, but was residing in 8th position for quite a while. Dropped down a couple of positions in that Casio triangle to P10, but a very strong qualifying performance from her. B-Roy in P9, but just look at the caliber of drivers up at the front end. Mr. Dale, though, a dominant performance here in qualifying. 0.8 of a second over F1 Damien in the wet, and they're gonna have to try and do what F1 Alex did last time out of the feature race, and they're just gonna have to run away with it and get clear as soon as possible.
Only one driver getting within a second of Dale. That is very, very interesting indeed, and probably shows you the dominance that Dale feels and how confident he is, because this is it's very difficult conditions. F2 cars in the rain is so challenging, and the fact that he's managed to put it on pole not by half a second or 0.3 of a second, 9/10, I think he'll have a huge smile that you could probably see in Japan.
I would have really loved to see what it would have been like in the dry and to see if the gap was still there, because as I said at the beginning of this show, if you haven't done the practice, you are going to be, exposed around a circuit like this, because you have to be so on it. It's not just a case of, okay, brake as hard as possible here, 90 left. Brake here, 90 right. It's nothing like that. No, you're feathering the throttle and a little dab of brake here, and you're working out those little nuances to get your way around the circuit as fast as possible. And I think Mr. Dale has done just that with the effort that he's put in during the week.
Few drivers that will be disappointed, you would imagine. GWAT's outside of the top 10. The two Pramas have had an absolute stinker in 18th and 19th. They were towards the front in the sprint race, unable to replicate that. Damien, brilliant job on the front row. We've got to shout out Damien. Has some fairly solid pace in the sprint race, translating that to a front row start.
Yeah, didn't have a great Brazilian Grand Prix. Only scored 1 point and got a P10 in the sprint race last time out. But this time around, you know, P6 on the podium in the sprint race, second place in the feature race in qualifying. It's going to be very interesting to see if they can get themselves into championship contention. Dirk Chocolate, we're going to have to see if he can do it from in the mix, P7 on the grid. Someone else that I think will be very disappointed, Adam Sanderson, definitely has the pace in this field to be up nearer the front end of the field. Must have just got it a little bit wrong into this corner right here. The first Degner, and you know, once you run just slightly wide, you get dragged out into that gravel, and then you just skate off into the barrier.
It's caught a lot of drivers out. What we can see, though, from the timing tower is a very interesting split in tyre strategies. We've got the front 2 on the softs, then the 3 behind on mediums, another 2 on the softs, another 4 on the mediums, and a big block of drivers on the softs. So it's a little bit split, but then we've got big chunks of drivers sat on the same tyres, which could make for a very interesting dynamic. Obviously, we saw last season the trend seem to divert towards starting on the mediums and finishing on the softs. What's your take on what would be the optimal strategy here? And do you think anyone's gone particularly wrong?
You said it completely correctly. I think mediums to softs is the ideal strategy around here. The softs are an absolute cheat code in F2 cars. They are phenomenal. Whereas the mediums and the hards, I remember Bahrain, we had hards and softs. Those hards were diabolical. You wanted to get off them as soon as possible and stay as much time on the softs as you can. They can go for quite a while and still be better than the medium tyres. So I think Mr. Dale could be coming undone, but they need to utilize being at the front, having that clean air, being on the soft tires, and being able to run away at the start, whilst the other guys on the mediums. But looking further down, F1 Scott could be in a really good position in this race. They might need to dispose of JD Devilnoob and Duncan fairly early on, but if they can stay with Mr. Dale on those medium tires, then it's going to be all them in the second phase of this race.
Yeah, Scott looking very good. Dale, though, is going to try and bolt away as he did in the sprint race last week. Goings on here as Dale backs out. Lets a gaggle of cars fly through, but we are getting ready to line up on the grid for what I'm hoping will be an equally exciting feature race. I'm slightly concerned about what's going on with Dale because he's doing about 6 miles an hour as he comes onto the main straight, and if he carries on at this speed, it could be about 4 days until he gets into his grid box, pulling out to the middle of the circuit. I wonder if that's the AI driving, which would be worrying, although the weaving probably suggests it is a human in that car. I think we can get ready to go as the Pramers round the final corner, along with Adam Sanderson, to get going for our 15-lap charge to see who will be the second feature race winner of the season. Only Vic has been disqualified, the only driver that failed to park adequately, and that is going to be a huge disadvantage. But as the lights come on ahead of the drivers, the nerves are going to be jangling. It is 5 lights ahead of our drivers.
And we go racing here at the Japanese Grand Prix feature race. Mr. Dale gets off perfectly. Duncan jumps. F1 Damien on the line on those medium tyres. A poor start from F1 Damien on the softs, and then they've run F1 Scott out wide. The guy that I said, you know, watch out for him on those medium tyres. He's a fantastic start to get himself up there and as close to Mr. Dale as possible. Now it's Duncan. He needs to get right on the back of that rear wing of Mr. Dale and stick with him for as long as they can. Dirk Chocolate moving up past championship leader F1 Alex up in a 6th position. F1 Alex in 7th place and F1 Scott in P5. Got a few changes at the bottom of the field. We've got Patterson and Hoodie Pete, the two Premiers fighting, but wheel to wheel through the Degner. F1 Damien on those softer, more grippy tyres. What an overtake around the outside of Degner 1. You never see an overtake there, let alone around the outside. A phenomenal move as we've got further back Dirk Chocolate and F1 Scott now fighting. Of course, Dirk Chocolate again on those soft tyres. So just like Damien and Mr. Dale, they need to absolutely get on it right now and make as many overtakes as possible to get ahead of the medium runners.
Scott, Dirk and F1 Alex continue to score. We've got Zach RC out of the race. We've got a safety car as F1 Scott is barged off the road going through Spoon Curve. We weren't able to catch it, but it is looking like a fairly sizable accident for the Invicta car as everyone backs off with the yellow flags and safety car. And it's going to be very interesting to see what people do here. I wouldn't imagine anyone's going to come into the pits unless they picked up some unsuspecting damage. But yeah, going back to that move from F1 Damien, he's writing his own chapters in the overtaking manual. Convention, not a word that belongs in his vocabulary this afternoon, and getting back up into 2nd place. Brave, but absolutely brilliant from the Trident driver.
We're only in the second round of the season, but that is one of the overtakes of the season. Mr. Dale not coming into the pit stop, of course. You cannot make a pit stop within the first 3 laps. Well, you can, but it just won't count as your mandatory pit stop.
Might have to tell
I
Dirk
don't know
that.
if anybody has told Dirk Chocolate that, because he has come into the box to get off of those soft tyres. Now, I really don't know what the strategy is here in play now for Dirk Chocolate. Are they going mediums, get them out of the way, and then maybe a late safety car later on in the race to get back on the softs and go on the charge? Or has somebody just not told him that he could potentially be in danger of getting disqualified at the end of the race, which would, you know, I love Dirk, but it would be hilarious to see his first race back or his first race in F2, get the race win, and then get disqualified in the feature for not knowing the rules. That is typical Dirk for not knowing the rules potentially there in F2. But, you know, this could be a strategic masterclass. Only time will tell. We've got 15 laps still that await us, and he could be right up there. But this is not going to play into any of the soft tyres' favours, because now it allows those medium tyres to get right up to the back and utilise those laps. Those soft tyres, you know, they're going to run out of the laps that they had of the advantage. So now they can maybe extend them 2 laps of what this safety car is going to be and have less time on the mediums, which can actually work all fair in their favour. But for those medium tyres, it's going to really play into their hand. They're right on the back of the soft tyres now, and when they box to go to mediums and the medium tyres go to softs, they're going to have such an advantage on that lighter fuel.
We could have a very funny, clippable moment if all goes to plan here and Dirk does end up realising the blunder that he has made, and we'll have to come back into the pits eventually, you would imagine. Otherwise, yeah, that could be an interesting end to the race. I think we could all agree that would be very funny, trying to be as impartial as possible. Dale, though, wiped out the lead that he had managed to build up on the opening lap, but you would imagine that on this safety car restart, he's going to be fairly confident that he can bolt once again. F1 Damien will want to try and stick with him, though. That was the big issue he had. Got caught up in traffic, got caught up behind Duncan, battling hard with the likes of JD Devilnoob, with F1 Scott, who also got stuck in very hard with F1 Alex and Dirk Chocolate. I think they both were taking chunks out of each other going through the first sector. So Dale's got to be careful here that he doesn't get overconfident, let's say.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what F1 Damien can do this time around. Obviously, not the greatest of starts from them off the line, but this time around with a safety car restart, you know, Duncan won't be able to overtake them until the first safety car line, which is about alongside the pit entry. So there'll be no overtakes up until that point. By then, as you go through the Casio triangle, I imagine Dale's going to go for it either just before or just after the triangle. It's going to be unlikely that Duncan's going to be able to overtake him. So for Damien, they need to stay on the back of Dale, try and put a little bit of pressure on them. And we haven't really seen that too much from anybody this season. Somebody really put a bit of pressure on Dale and potentially make an overtake when all things are fair. Obviously, we saw it slightly in the sprint race, but there was front wing damage on Dale's car. And just wind it back to Dirk Chocolate potentially having a funny clip. My favourite clip from last season in F2 was F1 Alex at Baku, where we first discovered this tyre rule for most of the grid. Few of us knew it already, but a lot of the grid didn't really realise it until then. And it's F1 Alex crossing the line with 1 lap to go. The AI takes over. He's getting disqualified, and at this time, he thinks he's finished the race and won, and he's just celebrating, not realising he's been disqualified. So, who knows? Maybe Dirk Chocolate will get himself into the lead due to this strategy and be celebrating in the same way F1 Alex. And for me, you know, I'd absolutely love to see that. As much as I love Dirk, I would also like to see him win. It will be hilarious.
Bit of a yikes moment, it has to be said. I think from what everybody's reporting in the chat, Dirk may have realised that he may have made a bit of an error. And yes, no. I think there may be some choice words regarding that decision. He has caught the back of the train, so we'll have to wait and see how quickly he can progress through the field. But he's, where was he, 6th or 7th when he came in? Now down in 19th. The soft tyres we know are very strong. He's on the slower mediums. He's going to try and extend. He's got to extend them fairly far. This could be a bit of a yikes. The safety car is in this lap though. Giggity, giggity, giggity. Let's go racing once again on lap number 3. And it is going to be Dale who will lead us away from the start of the second attempt trying to complete this Grand Prix.
Yeah, really slowing them down as they head now into the Casio Triangle. I'm going to watch on board with F1 Damien. Try and see when Dale is going to shoot away. He might open up this Casio triangle, and he has. He's absolutely launched it out of the final corner, built up a 7/10, 8/10, and if you remember from the sprint race, had some really great straight line speed. So he's going to build that gap now as they go down into the first corner. F1 Damien will potentially be able to just hoist them back in, though, as they go through the S's. As Dale just runs it slightly wide of the apex of turn 2, but has built the gap to 1 second. For Dirk Chocolate, they're making moves at the back of the field, overtaking only Vic. There's a little bit of a coming together. The two Premiers, they're very close teammates, so close that their cars were attached as they went through turn 2. Dirk Chocolate sneaking another position, and for him, I feel like they could get themselves back up into the points later on in this race. But Mr. Dale has absolutely bolted. Has someone put him in an F1 car? Because how has he got that gap in only half a lap around this circuit?
He likes what he's doing, and I can tell he's doing what he likes out in front. 1.6 seconds F1 Alex. So all over the back of F1 Scott through Degner 1 and 2, and I think it's only a matter of time before the Campos sends it up the inside. Bit of contact in front. That's Duncan and JD Devil Noob who can't get enough of each other, and it was the ART that was a bit sideways, and F1 Scott's from going for, well, overly defensive driving. He could be on the assault coming up towards Spoon Curve as he's very close to the back. Got to think about the Campos as well. Is there a little jink over? Yes, there was, but not an opportunity to send it up the inside and get up into 4th place.
Yeah, JD Devil looked like they just locked up the rears ever so slightly, just a bit too much into the hairpin, and now running wide on the exit of the Spoon Curve. This is going to allow F1 Scott to have a little look around the outside of 130R. They don't. Is F1 Alex going to have a look? No, they don't. Again, they just settle, and there's really not got the aero through 130R. Had to all back out of that one. No overtakes into the Casio triangle, but again, JD Devil Noob just not quite comfortable with that rear end through the corner there, and maybe for F1 Alex just cutting the Casio triangle ever so slightly, maybe too much, and now they go on the attack of Scott. He's going to pick up a fantastic slipstream all the way down into turn 1. Will be on the inside into the first corner, needs to make sure they don't get caught up. Slight contact between the two of them, but they get through into P5 and now can go on the hunt of JD Devil Noob. This is going to be a bit more of a, you know, try to reduce the deficit that Mr. Dale is potentially going to score over F1 Alex. They're on the same tyres. They're not really going to gain too much here on strategy, but they need to try and get themselves ahead of these medium runners up into the podium positions and maybe sneak a place on F1 Damien to remain at the top of the standings.
I'm not sure who that was, but going through Dunlop, massive sideways moment. I think it was you Pandas in the Van Amersfoort. Jess Gamer gets ahead of yours sincerely in battle for 12th and 13th. We've got a big queue of cars sat right underneath the rear wing of JD Devil Noob. You can see the advantage the soft tyres have got. F1 Alex using all the right parts of the racetrack. JD Devil Noob certainly not, and running wide again into the hairpin. This could open the campus up for an opportunity on the run down the hill in towards Spoon Curve. Can he just keep that front wing alongside? I think the ART might have the straight line speed as we go through the trees. Yes, not going to be able to make that move into Spoon Curve, but he's all over the back of the ART still, and I would imagine this is going to be only a matter of time before last week's feature race winner gets up into 4th place and sets his sights on the podium. Runs very wide there, though. That will certainly be a warning.
Yeah, but those lower wings that JD Devil Noob seems to be running could help them. Although, F1 Alex, do they have a look? No, they think better of it. But will JD Devil Noob run wide? No, holds it within the white lines. Won't have a look into the Casio triangle, but this is where F1 Alex needs to capitalize. They need to make sure they get it done through the corners. We've got a little fight happening. No, it's not a fight. It's an absolute madness happening, but at the back, F1 Scott, yeah, dropping down into P15. Got caught up there with B-Roy, G-Watts, Spro, and it is another safety car. A lot of cars piling into the pit lane there. Virtual safety car. We've got F1 Alex in the box. Yours sincerely. Sproat's in the box. Jess Gamer, Dirk Chocolate, Vic, and F1 Scott all into the pit lane under this virtual safety car. And I said earlier on, this is not good. This is going to be reducing the amount of points between F1 Alex and Mr. Dell, as F1 Scott has retired in the pit lane. Not too sure. Maybe just got caught up in a few too many collisions as it has given up on the race, which I don't really quite understand. There's a long way left to go. Virtual safety car could benefit those guys, but F1 Alex now is in the driving seat of this race. They're going to get practically a free pit stop here to gain that deficit back to Mr. Dale. They're going to be on brand new medium tyres, whilst Mr. Dale's hard, old soft tyres won't be as bad as maybe, you know, they would be at the end of his stint. But this is really going to help us. Sproat's just been driving a little bit too fast under the virtual safety car. Maybe just timed it a little bit too early and has got a drive-through penalty there. But F1 Alex now could be in contention for this race win.
I wonder if that was premeditated, because I think F1 Alex was in the pits before the virtual safety car came out. So whether he's just lucked into a very, very handy strategy, or that was entirely preempted. He saw the accident behind, went, this is going to be a VSC. Let me dive into the pits now. We don't know, but he's come out in a very, very nice clump of space. 14.5 seconds the gap between himself and Hoodie Pete, and he can just churn in the laps and try and make this undercut work. He'll be vulnerable come the end of the race, but he's in a very, very good position.
Yeah, 10 laps on those mediums, though, it shouldn't be as difficult as, you know, maybe going, if you were going to softs, if you were doing the other way around, which of course we've seen Sproat do, Dirk Chocolate, Jess Games, they're all going softs till the end. Now that's going to be slightly more difficult, but they should get to the end and they really benefit from these soft tyres. So Dirk Chocolate, his race might not be done yet, needs to catch up as we're watching you Pandas coming into the pits off those soft tyres. Mr. Dale now has to extend these softs, needs to go for as long as possible. Is keeping a 2-second lead at the moment over Damien, but Damien's holding rank at the moment, not really losing too much time in this race as Dragonfly's another driver on the soft tyres is hunting down B-Roy, who are on the mediums. For those now that are on the medium tyres, they're going to want a late safety car in order to beat F1 Alex in this race, because I think he's just going to be absolutely flying. Has massively capitalized and has now got another free position there as you Pandas is in the pit lane. So up in a P12, 13 seconds, a lot of free air, and this is really playing into their favor.
I mean, it's absolutely fallen into his lap. We'll have to ask him if he is on the podium how this strategy call came about, because he's pulled out the golden ticket to say the least. We've got a yellow flag. Is that a Prema car? I think it might be Hoodie Pete, is it?
Yeah, I think it was Hoodie Pete through Dunlop curve. Might have just lost the rear end or potentially done a Logan Sargent. Everybody's done it on this F1 game where you've just run a little bit too wide on that curb and the gravel just kind of sucks you out there. I think they got lucky not to end up in the barrier. You're not carrying as much speed through that corner in these F2 cars as you are in Formula 1. So you can kind of get away with it a bit more around here. But for Hoodie Pete, you know, it's not going that well for him this season. Didn't really score any points last time out in Brazil. Isn't scoring any points. No, actually did. He got second, to be fair. Completely forgot about his sprint race. He did get second place in the sprint, but this feature isn't going his way right now. Got caught up with a little bit of contact with his teammate, and now, of course, on his own doing P11 in this race, and is going to be wanting to try and stay there or thereabouts to score some points.
Dale's in. Race leader blinks. Lap number 8 we start, and the Campos driver does decide he's had enough of those soft compound tyres, and it will be a new set of boots. And it's going to be fascinating to see as Patterson is also into the box, where he will be in comparison to his main rival, F1 Alex. We're going to be looking for that other Campos car. The two teammates as King Kenny.
Yellow flags have come out. No, we go back to normal.
Back in. Not sure.
All track went to yellow. Where are they though?
Yes, it was a bit of a ghost yellow. F1 Alex has gone through though, and he's comfortably ahead. So now the chase is on. Dale has got. Oh, as F1 Alex falls off the road though, going through turn number 1. Interesting stuff there. 4.5 seconds. Probably will be a little bit more once those tyres get up to temperature, and that is what Dale has to overcome with not considerably fresher tyres.
Yeah, F1 Alex needs to really reel it in. He's got the lead of this race now. He's got a nice, comfortable 4-second lead over Mr. Dale, but ran wide at turn 1, then ran wide again at turn 2. You do not want to get a 3-second time penalty. It's fallen into your lap here, this race. You've got a lovely, comfortable lead of 4 seconds. Bring it home. Still keep the pace of your teammate. You can afford to lose, you know, a few tenths a lap. Just rein it in a little bit. Don't get drawn out too far wide and pick up those silly 3-second time penalties. F1 Damien still yet to come into the pits. Might come in on this lap as Duncan now the gap 1.8 seconds behind. Seems to be reeling the leader in just ever so slightly. And we'll be watching for those medium tyres when they make the gamble and seeing how much they can catch up on those fresh soft tyres.
Could be a Campos civil war, but I've been looking at the delta, and Dale has lost about 6 or 7 tenths of a second in the middle sector, so maybe a mistake there, pushing a little bit too hard. F1 Damien responds and is also into the box. I think maybe some of the guys behind will come in to try and put those soft tyres on. Yes, G-Watts is the first main medium runner to come in for those red striped soft compound tyres. Be interesting to see where F1 Damien comes out, whether he'll be in between these two drivers. Another penalty for speeding in the pit lane. This time it's Dragonflies, and that could put pay to what was looking like a very promising outing for the Road and Carlin car. We'll see where F1 Damien comes out, but I think they're going to be comfortably behind F1 Alex, and we'll have to wait and see where they come up with respect to Mr. Dale, who comes over the line. The gap, we can't see it at the moment because all the deltas are changing, whereas going over the line now and comfortably behind that Campos car.
Yeah, Miss F1 Damien's going to want to try and see if they can come out ahead of yours sincerely, which I think they're just about going to do as F1 Damien heads through turn 2. Yours sincerely going through turn 2 now. The gap 1.6 seconds, but yours sincerely has got warmer tyres. Might be 3 laps older, but they are slightly warmer, so can really reel him back in through this midsection of the track. Looking at the gap now between F1 Alex and Mr. Dale, 3.9 seconds. So those tyres are up to temperature, and Dale is hunting down what we feel like is potentially the net race leader of this Japanese Grand Prix feature race.
A huge mountain to climb, though. Not too long left in the race. We'll have to hope that his teammates' tyres fall very much off the cliff. We've got a nice little battle shaping up potentially just outside of the top 10 as our Dirk Chocolate update for you. Currently running in 12th behind the Van Amersfoort of UPandas on those soft compound tyres, and is right on the back of not only UPandas but GWATS, who has just exited the pits on a brand new set of the Red Stripe soft tyres.
F1 Alex is going to need Hoodie Pete to become his best friend right now in this race as he's approaching him as they go into 130. Spro has retired. They were at the back of the grid anyway into the pits, and their race is done. But here goes F1 Alex having a look on the inside. Doesn't go for it in 130R. Is a smart decision to back out of it, but that's losing vital time to your championship rival. The gap now 3.5 seconds to Mr. Dale. F1 Alex is going to need to get it done right now, or just like that, Hoodie Pete comes into the pits and unleashes F1 Alex into this free air. B-Roy is the only driver who has stayed out on those medium tyres, maybe hoping for a slight gamble onto for a safety car. But then again, F1 Alex, that turn 1, really catching them out at the moment. And they got to make sure they do not sneak a time penalty because it's all over. The gap currently is just over 3 seconds, so it's right on the edge at the moment.
Yeah, and the fastest lap to boot as well for Dale on the previous lap, really charging at his teammate, and F1 Alex is probably going to have to put in a defensive masterclass when his teammate cruises up to the back of him. Behind them, Duncan has just come out ahead of F1 Damien on soft tyres as well, so that could be crucial. Potential podium finish for the Van Amersfoort drive, which would be a very, very nice result with JD Devilnu just a further second back. Then we've got GWATS, Yours Sincerely, UPandas, and Dirk Chocolate continuing to march through the field and still in a big train of cars for 8th place.
Yeah, Dirk Chocolate just had a slight moment through the Dunlop curve right on the back, so maybe losing a slight amount of air in the dirty air as we've got Yours Sincerely drifting through Degna 2. Dirk Chocolate needs to get past these guys as soon as possible because at some point in the next 3 laps, there's a big lunge there from UPandas. Dirk just trying to navigate their way through the cluster of those 2 cars at the moment. Now going on the inside through this right-hander will then get the outside into Spoon Curve, but might just get the overtake done. It's wheel to wheel between Dirk Chocolate, Yours Sincerely. They have the inside line. Dirk trying to stick his nose around the outside was probably better off to try the switchback through the Spoon Curve. They're going to have to settle for P9, but they have dispatched of UPandas. They need to get past Yours Sincerely before their soft tyres start to die off. They're going to take the slipstream now all the way on the run down to 130R. Backs off through the corner as B-Roy finally decides to come into the pit lane. They're going to fall through the field. Let's see where they come out. Dirk Chocolate having a slight look, spooking Yours Sincerely, but also spooking himself. Really, really aggressive on the throttle, and that's lost him a little bit of time there. We'll get the DRS wing open. We'll really go on the attack now of Yours Sincerely. Looks very fast in a straight line. Can potentially be wheel to wheel into turn 1. There's B-Roy as well, who's going to come out just behind this little battle. Dirk Chocolate goes on the inside.
No.
He's got Yours running wide, and UPandas might just sneak back into 7th position. There is a huge fight going on for P7 right now, and I love to see it.
Both of the Red Bull livery cars running wide in sympathy for each other, just followed each other off the road at turn number 1, fell into the runoff area, and it was Yours Sincerely who certainly came off worst. Dirk Chocolate managing to hold position pretty much, but has got a very fast B-Roy sat right on his tail in that ART car, and Dirk could be looking in his mirrors for the next few laps. Add in front the gap. Now just 1.5 seconds between the 2 Campos cars. Dirk a little bit wide through Degnut 1, could put him under pressure from B-Roy behind, will be chomping at the bit. Look at him, already pulling over to the right-hand side. Is this going to be a swing around the outside? No, because his line is firmly shut and the door slammed very much in his face by Dirk Chocolate.
Yeah, Dirk Chocolate very lucky not to make contact there with B-Roy. Fully swooped across, took the normal racing line, which he has all fairness to do, but B-Roy's front wing could have slightly been up the inside. It could be all over for both of those drivers. I suspect F1 Alex has made a mistake into turn 1 once again because that gap dropped down drastically, and now it's just shy of 1 second. I think Mr. Dale is going to be just outside the DRS detection points. Let's not tune in on that battle just yet, as we're watching B-Roy on those brand new soft tires trying to navigate this little battle, and they need to get through quickly. They run wide at 130 yard. That's not going to help them. What I noticed in these F2 cars last season is some drivers, you just don't overtake them around the outside because they are never going to give you the space and you're always going to be on the back foot. And then it just allows you to have another driver behind, like yours sincerely could have stuck their nose in and overtaken you. And so we've got JD Devilnude moving themselves up into P4 above F1 Damien at the moment. But here comes B-Roy using the DRS. Can they have a look up the inside into turn 1? They are. Dirk Chocolate once again running slightly wide there. But that is B-Roy up into P8 and now on the attack of you pandas in this race.
That's been coming just like on the previous lap. Dirk making a mistake into the Casio triangle this time. The same mistake that the driver in front made. So following the driver that made a mistake. And it was Dirk that was once again caught out dropping behind the ART, who is all over the back of the Van Amersfoort car. And I think B-Roy is going to fly past any moment now. Are we going to see a move for the second time today around the outside of Degner number 1? This would be hugely brave. He's going to hang it in there. Little bit of contact, but matters not. Through goes the ART. And that is beautiful stuff from B-Roy with surgical-like accuracy as he flies around the outside and gets up into 7th place.
What have I just seen? That was absolutely incredible there from B-Roy. Right around the outside of Degner. I said it earlier, you don't see an overtake there. And I've seen it twice in this race. This is incredible. But now, let's focus our attention to the front. The two Campos drivers. We've got F1 Alex in the lead of this race. Two laps older tyres than Mr. Dale, who is now going on the attack as they go through the Casio triangle. Can Mr. Dale put that pressure on? We've seen F1 Alex has been very weak into turn 1. That could be the place to capitalize on their teammate. Heading down into the first corner, not really gaining too much of an advantage using the DRS there. Maybe F1 Alex has got slightly better wings, but as you can see, once again, just a little bit wide, and that curb can easily drag you out there and lose you vital time. 0.3 of a second between these two as they go through the windy bits here at the S's in Suzuka. No real chance of an overtake here, especially between the caliber of drivers that you're watching right now between these two. Meanwhile, further back, the battle's still going on between you Pandas, Dirk Chocolate, Yours Sincerely, and Patterson as they're all just sort of congregating with each other. F1 Damien dropping off the back of JD Devilnoob, but Mr. Dale has got 3 laps or 2.5 to try and get this overtake done.
I think Dale knows that he's got time here. He can see where his teammate's weak. He'll probably find out in a few moments' time that it is turn number 1. F1 Alex is struggling. Penalty picked up for only Vic for speeding in the pits, but down in 17th place. That won't make much difference to her final finishing position. And this may be the first opportunity for Dale to get up into the lead. And I think F1 Alex, in a matter of a few corners, is probably going to be entering the last chance saloon because the race victory is starting to just disappear from his grasp.
Yeah, it was a great call from F1 Alex. Maybe a little bit of luck, maybe a bit of good timing on his side with the virtual safety car, but now weaving to make sure that Dale does not get that slipstream as they head into 130 yard. He's just weaving in return, just showing I don't care how much you weave, I'm going to get you anyway. And I spoke to Dale before this race and he said, you know, he feels like he has the pace. His pace is very strong, but something he wants to try and really learn over the course of the season is that patience. And he's showing it right now. He's not going for any sort of drastic overtakes. He's just biding his time and just assessing. This is a great chance. There's nobody around you. You can assess the driver ahead, see where they're strong, see where they're weak, and then snap right up the inside of them and where they're weakest and try and take away that position.
F1 Alex defending sensibly, wasn't forced into a defensive shape being thrown into turn 1, which didn't put him offline and didn't allow Dale to try and swing it around the outside potentially, but now he's going to follow him through this beautiful section in the first sector of S's, trying to stick like glue to the gearbox of his teammate. Is this the opportunity? Little look around the outside, can't quite make it work and goes wide in fact onto the curb and really compromises his run up the hill into Dunlop. You would imagine he'll close up again though through the 2 Degners because those tyres are just that much quicker at the moment. Only 2 laps difference, but he's clearly got a lot of pace in hand and already got it back under half a second. Yellow flag going through turn number 1. I think that's one of the Dams cars. It might be Yours Sincerely facing the wrong way in the grass. Yes, we're going to stay on board with the leaders though because we don't know what Dale's going to do.
No, we do not. You know, opportunistic to go for that overtake through the S's before the Dunlop, but there was a mistake there from F1 Alex that these cars just don't have the grip or the downforce to make a move stick around the outside there, especially when you have these two drivers that are so evenly matched at the moment. Heading through the spoon curve, Dale just needs to stay on the back of him, but F1 Alex looks very strong out of corners and also with the straight line speed. Now, with these two, yes, they're teammates, But throughout the week, for all the practice that they're doing, they're setting time trial lap times, and then they're taking away their setups. They can't pinch it off each other. But could this be the opportunity now from Dale? No. They back out of it through 130R, maybe a little bit too much. The gap extends slightly. No chance of an overtake here into the Casio triangle. And we're going to head on to the final lap with a tantalizing battle between our two championship contenders.
Will it be F1 Alex? Will it be Dale? DRS flap open. This time the defensive shape is thrown over to the right-hand side of the track. Which way is Dale going to go? Chooses the left-hand side. He's going to try and swing it around the outside. Yes, he does. Dale's up into the lead of the Grand Prix at the start of the final lap. F1 Alex, he tried his best, but he couldn't hold on. And from down the order, Dale is back up into the lead. F1 Alex, brilliant strategy early on, pitting under the virtual safety car, but he finally has to relinquish P1 as Dale has marched his way through the traffic to take the lead.
Interesting strategy there from F1 Alex. Didn't try to just stick his nose up the inside. He had all the right to do so. They were wheel to wheel heading into the braking zone of turn 1 there. But F1 Alex thinking about the championship. He gained, 2 points. Or 1 point over Dale in the sprint race. He had an advantage coming into this weekend. Is going to lose 5 points, or maybe even more, with the fastest lap going Dale's way at the moment. Is it still going his way? I'm not too sure. But if it is going his way, then it is going to be that advantage towards Mr. Dale at the moment. But thinking of the long game is F1 Alex. No need to stick his nose up the inside. It could have just taken one slight amount of contact. He's round, then Duncan's past him, then JD's past him, and could be way out of the podium position. So F1 Alex thinking of the long game right now, but a great battle between these two over the last 2 laps.
Certainly sensible mistake from Dirk Chocolate into Degner number 2, and that allows Adam Sanson to get up into 9th place, but he makes a complete mess of it through the hairpin, opens the door, and the invitation is sent out to Dirk Chocolate to take that place back. He got through and then rolled the red carpet out for Dirk Chocolate to try and take the position back, but he does on the run up towards Spoon, managed to hold on. Will Dirk go for an audacious lunge at the inside? He's got 4 lap holder soft tyres. Those are going to be well past their best. He could even fall out of the top 10 with Patterson right behind him, but going round the final couple of corners, they won't cross the line of formation, but it is a Campos 1-2. It's Mr. Dale winning the feature race with F1 Alex just a second behind.
Fantastic drive there from Mr. Dale and F1 Alex. Both of them put on a brilliant performance, and I cannot wait to see more of that over the rest of the season. Looking further back, and it is going to be Dirk Chocolate who's going to be falling out of the top 10, but we'll stay in the points position, but we'll sneak back in actually because Patterson does have a time penalty to their name. Adam Sanson, a fantastic recovery drive, kind of, gone under the radar in this race, fell down early on, but has worked their way back up into P9. So strong performance there from Adam Sanson to get back up into the top 10. Dirk Chocolate crossed the line in P10, and we're going to be awaiting for only Vic to finish this race off, sadly, at the back. And as Jess Gamer as well, sad for her, very strong qualifying performance to be within the top 10, but unfortunately did not go her way in the race, dropping down to P15.
Unable to capitalise on what was some very promising pace, but Dale started on pole, almost got caught out by his teammate's strategy, was starting quite a few places further back, but on the final lap, threw it around the outside, beautifully done, and takes the victory and puts himself in a very strong position for the championship. And I think it could be these 2 Campos drivers at loggerheads for the remainder of this season. Like you said, I am very much looking forward to it. Disappointing for F1 Scott. We'll go through the final running order as we wait for only Vic to cross the line coming around the final corner. Just now to complete the running order. And that was, once again, it was a different kind of excitement to the sprint race. We had the unpredictability, the strategy call from F1 Alex, and then the tension and the suspension going up to the end of the race. Another very, very fun one. Everybody in the chat, try and get your votes in for driver of the day. We'll try and hand that out by the end of the stream. Your winners once again in the feature race are Campos, and it is Mr. Dale on the top step of that podium.
Yeah, very strong performance there from both Campos drivers, and just going to have a quick look at who got the fastest lap in that race. It was actually Duncan on the soft tyres. So the gap now between the 2 championship contenders, it goes to Mr. Dale's way. He is 1 point ahead of F1 Alex in the championship. A great race, and this is why I love the format that we have of F2. The feature race is a bit sweatier. Is a bit more, you're seeing the caliber of drivers in front of you, and you can really adore their driving ability and be like, you know what, that was a fantastic drive. Whereas the sprint race is a bit more chaotic. Anyone can kind of win it, they can be at the front, but it's also a lot of carnage and it's a lot of getting through the chaos, and you're just thrown straight into the action. And I love this format for the way that it is, and it's so thoroughly entertaining.
Hugely exciting. There are your results. 2 Campos leading the way ahead of a brilliant podium from Duncan. Started third, finished third. Fastest lap as well. Very, very good day at the office. Same for JD Devil, who missed last week. Picks up a very decent haul of points in 4th. F1 Damien. 5th, dropping down from 2nd, will be a little bit disappointed. G Watts in 6th ahead of B-Roy. You Pandas, Adam Sanson, and Dirt Chocolate rounding out your top 10. Further down, the 2 Pramers recovered from a terrible qualifying, but unable to make real inroads towards those top 10 places, 11th and 13th, with Dragonflies in between, King Henny, Jess Gamer, and Only Vic. Yours sincerely, Spray, F1 Scott, and Zach RC, your non-finishers. Thank you, Suzuka. I think that is the best way to put it. As the cherry blossoms bloom with their vibrant energy, we once again have to thank this wonderful, wonderful racetrack for providing us with yet another thriller.
Yeah, a bit of a slow one last week in Brazil, but Japan definitely did not disappoint. Some really strong performances throughout the rest of the grid as well. Dirk Chocolate, good recovery drive, in all fairness to them. Made the mistake, you know. It's not something that everybody knows about Formula 2, and it's very easy to make that mistake, as a lot of people did last season. But yeah, he made the mistake, pitted a little bit too early, but then had to make the second pit stop and recovered quite nicely to finish in the top 10. So strong showing there from Dirk, and of course the sprint race win as well. He'll be very happy with that.
What could have been, though? What could have been had he not gone for that mistaken pit stop under the virtual safety car? We'll have to wait. If we see anything from Dale. Interviews, though, we're going to bring in definitely the 2 Campos drivers. You would imagine looking forward to speaking to them. I think Dale is ready to jump in already. So if we bring our feature race winner into the commentary box, we'll see what Dale has to say. Dale, hopefully you can hear us unlike you did last week. Brilliant performance from you. We'll start off with the sprint race, though. What happened?
It was a little bit of a tailback. We tried our hardest to get through, maybe a little bit more aggressively than I should have done at some points. But yeah, we hit sector 1. A couple of slower drivers ahead. They made a mistake. They had to slam the brakes on. It was just a concertina effect. Ended up with a right-hand broken wing, which then made it look like I sent a diabolical dive bomb on Patterson, but I didn't. My tyres locked up. We slid across the curb. It was game over. We boxed, ended up about 40 seconds behind, managed to claw it back to somewhat of a respectable position and gained 30 seconds back. So, yeah, sprint race could have been better, but you know, we get what we're given, unfortunately.
Well, moving on to one-shot qualifying, you've certainly been able to talk the talk, but I think you've very much walked only one driver within a second of you. That must have made you smile.
Honestly, I've been on the absolute ropes today. Hayden knows what he's been doing. It's been a hell of a day. I've been thinking there's going to be wet here, dry there, moist there. When I'm not going to lie, my keyboard did get smashed. I do need a new keyboard. So I'm sure that clip's floating around. But yeah, managed to dial in, managed to swallow what we had, get the qualifying done and go forward with the feature race. It was, my God, one of the hardest races I've ever had to do.
Please never change, Dale. Please never change. Hayden, it was the sprint race. You had to work for it, didn't he? But eventually, with a beautiful move on the last lap, he managed to take the victory.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a chat beforehand. Alex, I mean, we've got a little band. We're not going to fight each other. Gloves come off after round 4, so that's when you're really going to see the Campos guys putting some battles to each other. But yeah, it was incredible. Alex got such a jump with that VSC being able to undercut everybody. It was amazing. Ended up 4 seconds ahead of me in net P1, and it was absolutely game on from that point. So if that VSC didn't come out at that point, the end of the race would have been a very, very different scenario, and I'm glad I got to battle.
Did you feel like when the virtual safety car came out and you saw F1 Alex at that 4-second gap up the road, did you feel like, okay, sadly the race is gone, or were you like,
yeah, I swear I did, yeah. But then I had a little glance over at chat. They were like, come on, you got to dial this in. Literally put my head down, netted 2 back-to-back fastest laps on the medium straight out the pits, and just literally did everything in my power to catch up with him. Didn't make a single mistake, and it felt so good for the practice to pay off.
Well, this is something we spoke about before today's race, and you were saying something that you do want to learn and build upon is your ability to be patient and to not get as aggressive or, you know, lose your head as quickly. And I think you certainly showed that today. And was that what you were showing at the end of that race today? That, you know, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, I could have absolutely sent it on Alex so many times, but I was like, I'm just gonna ruin our own races. Like, just be patient. If you can get a good exit on the final corner at the last lap, you've got him. I knew Alex had lower downforce than me. I knew he was faster in a straight line. So if I was going to get him on that DRS straight, I had to be smelling what he was smelling, and it was close.
Championship standings.
We got it.
Yeah, championship standings. You are now a point clear of F1
Yeah.
Alex. How are you feeling about that?
Honestly, I've been I feel great for the guys to put me in F2 as well. I know it was partly my fault I ended up here, but for giving me that opportunity to race in F2 has absolutely resparked my passion for this game, and I'm really hoping I can rub that off on some other drivers and move from here, because it's incredible.
We've made a really, really good start to your campaign. And yeah, we wish you the best of luck for the Fan Vote GP next week, and of course the rest of the season. Congratulations on your feature race win.
Thank you very much, Hayden. Looking forward to watching it all back from you guys. You did an amazing job as always. Thank you very much for the comms, and yeah, have a great day, guys. Have a great day, chat.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Should we bring in his teammate?
Let's do it.
F1 Alex. Unable to replicate the feature race victory from last week. So close. One lap too many.
Yeah. It's a tough one to take, because I thought the strategy played out perfect. Started on softs. I couldn't get past, I don't know if it was the Devil Noob. And then I was coming in that lap anyway. I was going to try an undercut. However, the VSC come out perfect, and I thought, I've won this race. Dale pitted, went past him for 4 seconds and thought, oh my god, I've won again. And then towards the end of the race, as Hayden quite rightly pointed out once on stream, I burned through my tyres very quickly. So I'm always quick at the start of a stint, and then when I get towards an end, yeah, not too quick. And that was the case today. I've jumped onto the mediums. They felt great for about 5 laps. In the end, I was on like 60% mediums. So yeah, Dale did a great job. But just wasn't to be today.
Well, I mean, that's strategical. We were unsure when it happened, whether it was premeditated, you were going to come in earlier, or you saw behind you, because I think the accident happened just in front of you, did it not? And then you looked in the mirror and thought, oh, we're going to have a safety car here, I'll jump in the pits.
I can't remember. I was coming in anyway. I was actually contemplating coming in at the end of the safety car, because I saw obviously Dirk pitted on lap 3, and then I thought to myself, nope, Dirk, don't do it, and he did it. So I stayed out an extra lap, and I was going to do it. I was sat there going, shall I not? And then I waited a couple of laps, and I said to my chat, I said, I'm coming in this lap. This is the lap I'm coming in. And then as I got to the pit entry, the VSC came out, and I was like, oh my goodness, what's gone on here? And yeah, I towards the end of the stint, I kept saying, I did that to try and jump P234. I knew Mr. Dell was going to be a bit too quick today.
I want to know about something that Mr. Dale said when we had a little chat with him. This premeditated, we don't fight until round 4. What's that all about? Where's our entertainment?
Well, he said that, and I was like, yeah, let's go along with that. But I mean, I don't know if you saw at the end. I was trying my hardest to keep him behind.
Yeah.
I was doing everything I could. I was like, do you know what? When I got onto, I think it was like 5 laps towards the end, and I thought, he's catching a little bit now. I'm going to do everything I can to defend, because I want this win. But at the same time, I'm not going to make any risks. You know, there is a constructors. Am I right in saying there's a constructors championship as well?
There's not a constructors championship.
Oh, is there not?
You can have a constructors championship
gotcha.
if you in your heads, but there's not an actual one.
Right. Okay. So at the end of the day,
what I'm saying is, get the gloves off. All right. Through round 4. Round 3, I want the fights.
I was on 60% tyres. I wasn't fighting anything towards the end of that race. I was P1 in the championship. I got a good result to start with. I managed to sneak some points in the sprint today with damage from lap 1, so that was a good result. And I know I had P2, so I thought to myself, don't fight it too much. But I did see his back end slipped out on the last lap, and I thought, oh, this is my chance. But no, I was too far back.
For the rest of the season, we spoke to you last week, and you were a little bit coy, didn't want to talk too much about winning the championship and trying to go up. Has your opinion changed on that yet?
Not yet. I think first things first, let's make the playoffs. I think that's key. You make the playoffs, you've got your seat for next season, whether it's F2 or F1. And yeah, I mean, I'm in a good position. I think I heard you say it was 1 point.
Yeah, just
Is there a 1-point
Yeah.
gap? Wow. Okay. And I think, I'll be honest, I think it's going to be like that for most of the season. If it is me and Dale up there, I think it's going to be nip and tuck. I think it'll be a last race. I really do think it'll be down to the last race who scores the most points. But yeah, let's settle for the playoffs. Still at this point in time, let's settle for the playoffs, and yeah, we'll see what happens towards race 5, race 6.
Well, congratulations. Thank you for talking to us, and
Thank you.
of course, we wish you the best
More
of luck
than
for the
welcome.
rest of that season.
Thank you very much. Great job today, guys. Thanks, Hayden. Thanks,
Yeah,
Dylan.
This Campos domination is getting a little bit boring, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. Someone needs to have a word with them. I'm glad that we're slowly getting that no battling until round 4 out of the way.
Well, we can get rid of that. We don't need it. Before we let you go, because we know that you do have to try and get in for the F1 coming up in just 15 minutes, who would you give your drive of the day?
Driver of the day, I think we've had some really strong performances. Mr. Dale, domination in qualifying and a very good recovery drive in the race. I think Dirk Chocolate, a shout out, to be fair, for the sprint race and then also for the feature race, of course, that mishap coming through the field. So I think there's definitely some really great drivers to put it on. But I think you have to go with the man who just dominated this weekend. And had they not got that little mishap on lap 2 in the sprint race, I think they would have had the trifecta. Would have had pole, would have had the sprint race win and the feature race win. It's got to go to Mr. Dale.
I concur, absolutely agree. Brilliant from Dale, and certainly backing up the chatter that he's been giving some of his competitors. But that is us done for another week of F2. Thank you everybody for watching. Hayden, we wish you well in the F1 coming up, and away from handing over to our lovely commentary team of the legend that is George Morgan and Jess Gamer and F1 Scott. So while we wait, we'll just play a little bit of last week's highlights. But Hayden, is there anything you want to say before we sign out?
Just keep tuning into the F2. It's going to be more chaos, more drama, and a whole lot of great racing.
Thank you everybody for watching, and the Create Series will be back very, very
as there are across the grid. The lights now lighting up here at Brazil. And it's pedal to the metal. And it is go, 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 go. Matty D13 getting away very well. Hayden Gullis, Chesnoid Gaming round the outside. Curbs heading down as well. That inside line too, trying to negate the attack from Noiguera, though I think he's come unstuck. Chesnoid Gaming behind Hayden Gullis, who got a very good start as well, heading down the long straight. Through to Cidia de Lago they will go. Matty in front. Hayden trying to consolidate P2, but down the inside now Noiguera as he looks to challenge Curbs right at the get-go. A very orderly start. There's a lot of battling further down. Tom 97 and Meraki and M Sky Z all coming together.
Oh, a big slide there for Chesnoid Gaming's Haas. That has then meant that Curbs has had to dive onto the anchors. That's opened the door then for Noiguera, who's gotten up the inside. We know they're very, very quick from their races towards the back end of last season, just unlucky sometimes with strategy, with luck and other bits and pieces as well. They now find themselves up in 4th place. Curbs down a spot at this early stage of the Grand Prix, of the sprint I should say.
As now they head out of the centre S's. There's Tom now, wheel to wheel between Alex Gillen and Tom 97. Two juggernauts here in the F1 Creator Series. They're going to run wheel to wheel, heading through towards the next left. They're going around the outside of Tom. It's Tom 97. He's run off the road, but is now coming back into contact with Alex Gillen this time. Heading through towards the Ferragera. Through the Piratella they'll go as well. Fighting tooth and nail between the pair. Late on the brakes. In comes Tom 97 now. Back on the throttle, squeezing it tight as they deep dive through this progressive left-hander. Still, though, they rush together. Alex Gillen fighting him back, trying to scrape everything he can. He's going the long way round through this portion of circuit. They beat wheel to wheel right through the entirety of the lap. And now, Alex Gillen up to 10th place. Paya down to 11th and enter Tiamat Marduk.
Absolutely, Ben is going to have a little look up the inside of this one here. They've got their Ferrari right up alongside now with the McLaren. They've got a bit of slipstream from the cars in front as well. You can see the lap times are starting to come in at the top of the screen there. We've got some good movement towards the front here from other cars too. And going up the inside there, the McLaren of Tom 97 gets that move up the inside of Ben Daly. Ben runs him all the way out of road though, forces him off of the circuit there. Absolutely fists out racing as we get going at the start of Season 6.
Yeah, it's getting really, really tight down below as well. And it still continues. Yorper and Tiamat Marduk coming together now. Yorper, who's moved up to 12th, has had a great start to his campaign. Tiamat Marduk just slotting in behind now Tom 97, who missed out majorly after the encounter further up the order. And Tom's out! No! I think he came together with Meraki. He was fighting it out earlier on with him, and unfortunately now sees himself out of the race. We got yellow flags across the circuit, no sign of a safety car. It certainly could be, and if he carries on like he is, I'm sure he will find himself there as well. Pet now going wheel to wheel with Alex Gillen. A car off at the back. That's Chesnoid Gaming. Chesnoid Gaming, who really impressed back at China during the playoffs. Coming out of F2 into F1, managed to save his bacon, was not relegated out of the top championship, and has now since moved to Haas, but getting unstuck. And he can't afford for this to happen so early on in a campaign, because that could be the difference between promotion and relegation, Dan. Tom certainly with a little bit of an advantage, but Infratic certainly trying to muscle his way through and solidifying his place in P7 as Peya now drops back down to 8th. Alex Gillen now sending it up the outside as they now go wheel to wheel with Yorper as well, who is certainly looking to try and prove himself in his very first race in this Season 6 campaign, and getting himself off to the perfect start indeed, trying to battle out against Alex Gillen, someone who is, of course, a champion back in Season 2, and if Yorper can show that he is certainly true and certainly a fantastic driver and a fantastic talent that he surely is, he's now showing it here against Alex Gillen. To do this against a former champion is sending a message.
Tom, and that's a Mercedes round. Dave Gaming is round. Sorry to cut you off there, George, but it was side by side between the pair of them. Tom was forced all the way off the circuit by the Mercedes, and then the Dave Gaming seems to have just dropped it entirely on their own. That is not how they would have wanted this sprint to get started off with, and that has only opened the door to allow other drivers, those drivers who started much further back, to pick up free positions, which of course is not what those towards the bottom end of the field will have wanted. Infratic, we now watch at this point in time as we go down the Retta Aposta here, and as we go in towards that Desida de Largo, it's going to be Infratic in behind, but now Alex Gillen is having a look up the inside as well. Too little too late there from Alex, I suspect, and that has opened the door to the other of the Scuderia. Benjamin Daly out of nowhere is now behind their teammate in 7th place.
Fantastic move from Ben Daly. 7th place now, but a move up the inside straight away. No teammates here, no fear here at Brazil. Infratic, though, doing his utmost as Alex Gillen now looks to creep on by. The two rivals now joined together, and I think Ben is fearful. He's going to chuck it up the inside of his teammate. 3 Ferrari powertrains bound together now as they head up the hill towards the next left-hander, and it's Alex Gillen who has trumped the pair of them. The Haas now hits the heights. It's in P6, and now Gillen is hunting down after Yorper. Ben Daly licking his wounds in 7th place. Perhaps open the door, provide himself with an opportunity, as now we once again see the yellow flags erupting in the final sector, and it looks like that's a Haas of Alex Gillen. And I tell you what, that's a tragic end to what could have been a blissful day, but Noiguera immediately pounces. He's waiting no longer. It's the Mercedes now, magnificent here at Brazil, and he's trumped Matty D13, and now Hayden Gullis is going to look for a move as well.
Hayden will certainly look for a move, but I feel like Vince is... Oh no, Hayden's got the ERS. He's been saving that up. You can see the flashing red light in the back of Matty D's McLaren. And on the inside goes Hayden Gullis. Gullis then gets the move done and will go chasing on after Noiguera for a potential drive up the hill to end up winning this one. But we're almost there now, George. Ben Daly's gotten 5th place from Yorper. No, not from Yorper, from that guy Vince. And here comes the line, Noiguera. Noiguera's going to win the first sprint race of the season. Hayden Gullis comes in 2nd. Then Matty D comes in behind, and on the line, it seems, Ben